Very good. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Local Planning Agency meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023, and it is now 5:33 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Ross? Here. Board Member Bailey? Here. Board Member Davis?
Here.
Board Member Cannibal?
You.
Board Member Avila? Here. Vice Chairman Fletcher? Chairman Losner?
Here.
Ex officio Lawrence Ventura?
All right, and Mr. Cordino, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals? Or Mr.
No, sir, not to this LPA
Not for
meeting.
this. All right, very good. Thank you. All right, as our first item of business, we have before us tab 1, which is the approval of the October 18th, 2023 Local Planning Agency minutes. We have a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Board Member Roth. Do we have a second? Second by Board Member Bailey. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor, council members, this is the quasi-judicial section of the agenda. Please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in, all testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the local planning agency to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-590, any lobbyist must register before addressing the LPA on any of the following items. At this time, LPA members must disclose any ex parte communications concerning tab 2 or tab 3, the items on this evening's quasi-judicial agenda.
All right, Councilmember Davis, have you had any briefings or contact with respect to either of these items?
Have not.
You have not. Board Member Cannonball? I have with respect to the, to tab 3, car number 4093. Board Member Roth? Bauman? Yes. Tab 3, yes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
White.
at this time, I would ask anyone who's wishing to speak on items tab 2 or 3 this evening to please stand, raise your right hand to be sworn by the clerk.
Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Thank you. You may be seated.
Tab 2, card number 4092, is an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the rezoning as requested by Chrome Partners LLC of an approximately 0.31 acre parcel of land from one family R1 zoning district to professional business restricted B1A zoning district for property generally located west of Chrome Avenue along the north side of Northwest 17th Street as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Cordino?
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a question about how to proceed. I have, since it's the LPA, and we are typically do this very quickly, I have more detailed presentations because we have 2 new members. Would you like me to give those now, or should I give those during the regular council meeting?
Let's continue as we normally do. And again, for our new members, typically, this is the ministerial step, and we have the full discussion, both from staff and the applicants and among ourselves at the full council agenda.
So I will give you just the thumbnail at this point in time. You'll do what you do with it. And at the regular council meeting, we will go into a little bit more detail on the staff reports. So we are talking about item number 2, tab number 2 here. This is the public hearing 2023-72 Chrome Partners LLC. Staff is recommending that the mayor and council approve the proposed ordinance requesting a rezoning from one-family residential R1 to professional business district B1A pursuant to the city code section 3041 for the .31 acre land located west of Chrome Avenue along the northwest side of 17th Avenue. The applicant is requesting the rezoning encompassing the lots 15, 16 of Block 3, and it's putting the comprehensive plan and the zoning code in conformance with one another, which I'll explain later. We've evaluated this based on the city code. We find it to be compatible with the neighborhood, and we are recommending approval.
Appreciate it. And are there any questions or comments initial at this point? No? Okay. Are there any public comments on this item? So I'll entertain a motion to forward this item to the council. Moved by Board Member Roth, seconded by Board Member Bailey. If there are no final comments or questions from council, we'll have a roll call on this item.
Board Member Avila? Board Member Davis?
Yes.
Board Member Roth? Board Member Bailey? Board Member Cannibal? Chairman Losner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item, Mr. White.
Yes, moving on to your last and final items. Tab 3, card number 4093. It's an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the rezoning as requested by Bonham Automotive LLC of an approximately 6.3 acre parcel of land from agricultural zoning district to retail commercial B2 zoning district for property generally located east of Southeast 6th Avenue along the south side of Southwest 328th Street, Lucy, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. And the short form, Mr. Cordino?
Yes, sir. We're recommending approval. This is a rezoning from agricultural to B2. The applicant is expanding a parking lot. The ag use doesn't specify that you can do a parking lot there for their automobiles, so they need to put it, they need to bring it into B2, which does do that. That's fine. It recommends approval. We're recommending approval for it. It conforms with our code.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council?
Mayor, may I interrupt for a moment? I had failed to mention that I had met with Holland and Knight regarding this issue.
Good, thank you for that clarification. Okay, so there are no further questions from council. Are there any public comments? None appearing. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Board Member Avila, second by Board Member Roth. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Roth? Yes. Board Member Bailey? Yes. Board Member Avila? Yes. Board Member Cannibal? Yes. Board Member Davis?
Yes.
Chairman Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Well, any further business, Mr. White or Mr. Cordino? With that, do we have?
Mayor.
What's that?
Not at this time.
No. Okay. Have a motion to adjourn the local planning agency meeting. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. And we will convene the city council meeting at 6 o'clock. Thank you all. We'll be back shortly. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The first council meeting of the City of Homestead Council for the 2023-2025 term. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. It is now 6:02 p.m. This evening, we will have the invocation by Pastor Darrell Cooper, pastor of New Life Sanctuary, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance with Vice Mayor Fletcher and the Homestead Police Explorers. Would you please rise?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Always an honor. Let's pray. Father, we come before you, Lord, and we seek your will. We seek your will over our lives. We seek your will over this great city of Homestead. And Father, I pray that as these men and women that serve this amazing city come together, whatever time they come, that you'll honor their conversation. that you'll give them clear thoughts. Lord, that you'll just give them clarity in everything they do, that you will guide them, you will direct them, you will show them the way, and they will stay on track. They will follow your guidance, your direction. Father, I pray that as they make tough decisions throughout this time, as they serve this great city, that those decisions that they make will be sound, will be balanced, and will be weighed by your will. I pray for this city, Lord, every single day, that your blessings will fall upon us as we stand together, honoring these men and women that serve this city, sacrifice their time to be leaders of this city. I just pray that your will be done over their lives and over their tasks and over the mission they have here at Homestead. This is my prayer, and we all say amen. God bless you all.
They're not here? Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right. Our first agenda item tonight is public comments. Roll call, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Avila? Here. Councilwoman Bailey? Here. Councilman Cannibal?
Here.
Councilman Roth? Here. Councilman Davis?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Here.
Mayor Losner?
Here. Thank you all. So I'll now open the floor for public comments, but I will first take those who have registered to speak prior to opening the floor for those either here in person or online. And the first person to register today was Linda Fagan.
Good evening, Dr. Fagan. I am Dr. Linda Fagan. I live at 17305 Southwest 300th Street. I work, live, and play in Homestead, and I have for the last 40 years. If I slip up reading this, I want you to know I'm reading my own handwriting, and it's very difficult to read doctors' handwriting, but I'll make the best of it. I would like to thank Julio Guzman and Patricia Faircloth for their great work in this community in the last few years. Also, I would like to thank Councilman Roth, Council Clemente, Councilman Fletcher, and Councilman Davis for a non-slander mudslinging campaign. Thank you to Ms. Amy Spadaro, Jim Wyatt, Toshiba, and Bobby Ray for also not mudslinging and sending terrible flyers out or emails, like Mr. Victor, whoever his fake name is, in True Homestead. Most important tonight, I would like to address the rumors that are going on in this community. That of tonight is a complete sweep of the administration of the City Hall staff and the police administration. Mr. Estrado, Mrs. Sewell, Chief Roll, as far as this community is concerned, you have done a fabulous job. Next to Alex Muxo, George Greskes, Kurt Ivey, you have been a great city manager, Mr. Estrado. Those were the days, my friends. I wish they never ended. Good luck to all of you. Be true to yourself and never push in a direction you don't want to go. The community and God are watching. Remember, the council brought before you a new police station, new city hall, and revitalization of the Seminole Theater. Also, thank to you, Miss Erica and Miss Jennifer, for your hard work. I thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think there's a lot of people here regarding the air base item or the item on Campbell Drive that's going to be deferred. I don't know if you want to mention to them that it's going to be deferred so they don't wait.
Yeah, to the manager's point, it's our it is anticipated that deferrals will be requested for the item that that is objected to by the Homestead Air Reserve Base. We will get to that in just a moment, but it appears that it will be deferred, or a request for a deferral will be submitted to the council tonight. And just to put your minds at ease, we'll do that formally in just a couple of minutes once public comments are completed. All right, Ms. Sorrentino?
Hi, Susan Sorrentino, 2610 Northeast 3rd. When you see this face, gentlemen, I'm going to talk to you about art. They already know that, okay? So I've been doing that for 6 years, and tonight's no exception. I asked to hand out to you, I've been trying to get an art program for William Dickinson Community Center, which is in your area. And this has been going on all summer. I've asked for you to have a copy of an email that I sent to Mr. Good in September after I had gone through what had to be done to try to get it accomplished. Bottom line is there's no funding for it. So we have an art room there that's beautiful. It can accommodate 30 people, given instruction and supplies. So that's what that letter is. It's self-explanatory. It just goes over what I did over the summer. So I just wanted to bring you up to date. The seniors of Homestead matter, okay? My second issue, Public Art Committee, you all should get a copy of your master plan that we adopted in October of 2021. Along with that was a work plan. The most important thing that has not been addressed, and I gave you a copy of the minutes from the Public Art Committee in March of last year, so it's a year and a half old, to look at and revise what the public art contribution from developers is for Homestead. We adopted in 2007 Public Art Committee that the public art program from the state of Florida, which allows 2.5% of construction cost to be contributed, that is over $1 million, to be contributed to the art fund so we can have public art. In 2012, council requested for it to be reduced from what's allowed by the state, 2.5%, down to 0.5%. I wasn't there then, but I believe it was to promote developers to come to Homestead. We don't have that problem anymore. I have been requesting this to be revised now for years. The March minutes that you have in front of you, I was a chairman of the committee at that point, and it's for you to review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ventura, I know that you are the third person to have registered. Is that rendered moot by what may happen in the next few moments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, assuming we're going to go ahead and defer, then we'll have no comments for Airbase. Thank you.
Good, thank you, sir. All right, so, Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. There's two deferrals. First one is tab number 3, car number 4091, 2023-60 Viking Investment Properties South LLC, vested rights, The applicant has requested a deferral to December, next month. Next item is tab 4, car 4071, PH 2021-58, site plan amendment approval for Homestead Commerce Center. The applicant has also requested deferral to December.
Good, thank you. Mr. Attorney, do we need to vote on them separately?
No, you can do that collectively.
All right. Do I have a motion? Now, do we have date certain to next month, to our next council meeting? Yes, as to the,
As far as ours is concerned, if we could just clarify on the record, if you don't mind, Mr.
Liz, the December council meeting?
December 15th.
13th.
December 15th.
That's a Friday.
13th.
Sorry, December
13th.
13th.
Love to spend Friday with you guys, but I doubt you want to
Not
spend
Friday
it
the
with me.
13th, okay.
Excuse me, September 13th.
13th.
December, sorry.
Mr. Bass, is that? All right, so do I have a motion to defer each of these items to the council meeting of Tuesday, December 13th, 2023? Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Vice Mayor Fletcher. Roll call.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Roth? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Cannibal? Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. Yes, certainly.
Hugo Arza, 701 Brickell Avenue, representing the Homestead Commerce Center. I want to thank everyone for their time. I want to welcome the newest members. We look forward to being before you next month. Just a couple quick points, because I haven't had an opportunity to meet with all of you again today, but thank you all for meeting with me several times. We have chatted with Mr. Ventura. We're going to continue a conversation outside. You have our commitment. We are deferring candidly to be able to continue to have discussions, particularly Councilman Davis, who we had not been able to meet with. Understandably, he was just sworn in 2 days ago. And also to address some of the letters that only came to light today to us, that we felt it was important to make sure that the administrative record that you all hear on December 13th is clear. It was a lot of letters. I thank those of you that sent them to me today. I think even some of the staff wasn't aware that the letters had come in, and we just need the time for that. But you have our commitment that we'll be back on December 13th, but I wanted to thank all of you for the time you've given me, because we have taken up a lot of it, and we look forward to seeing you next month. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arza. All right. Okay. For those of you who were here for that application that potentially impacted Homestead Air Reserve Base, if you'd like, you go ahead and we'll pause for a moment while you leave. If not, if you want to stay for the show, welcome. Glad to have a full house. If there is no objection from a majority, I would ask to move to my items. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's approve the consent agenda. We have before us tab 1, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. All right, moved by Councilman Roth, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? We did public comment. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. So, I'm going to jump back to the public comment section. If there was anyone else in the chamber or online wishing to speak, looks like we've got a pretty full house, so let's dial the clock back to 2 minutes rather than 3, and come forward. Thank you for catching that.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, Dr. James Eric McDonough, 32320 Southwest 199th Avenue. I want to congratulate the mayor and all the councilmen and persons who are elected or re-elected. It was a hard-fought battle. Hopefully, the people have now spoken. We can put this behind us and move forward. I appreciate the shout-out from Nurse Linda Fagan and the shout-out for True Homestead. Hopefully, maybe I can get some tutelage with her and learn how to get CRA grant funds when I owe the city a tax lien. But the real reason I'm here is I wanted to come in to apologize to Chief Roll. I heard he was upset that we delayed our publishing of the resignation of Bryce Barker 2 hours after it happened. And, I kind of got caught up, but I want them to know that in the future, I'll do my best to publish in real time when any officers are forced to resign because they're alleged to either be stealing time or using a city car outside the city to receive oral sex. And anyway, again, congratulations. Y'all have a great evening. God bless.
Thank you. Who's next? Good evening, sir, and if you'll give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Kamari Robinson, 546 Northwest 7th Street, Homestead citizen. Good evening, everybody. Last time I was here, I was in the position of working with the CRA and receiving a grant. You asked two things that day. You asked the companies that are serving Homestead, doing the work on these people's homes, are they from Homestead? That's what you asked. And the other one you asked that was very good question you asked was the Section 8 direction of people that might have vouchers that are in the lane of buying homes and want to do a lot more with that trajectory of things. I'm in both. Since that date, I still have not got my home repairs done. But the reason why is because we got companies outside of Homestead overbidding. I got contracts from fencing companies in Homestead, $5,000, $10,000, $12,000. Every contractor that they had come out to my house charged $20,000. And the problem is that still I don't have a fence. And because of the overbidding, excuse me, this is why as a citizen I sit with nothing. 8 contractors, I was told, came to CRA, working through Rebuilding Together. Oh, Mr. Allen from Rebuilding Together, he said he hates Homestead. He said he hates the permit office. He said he hates everything down there. I'm letting you know, be clear. Because you said transparency and God we trust. The citizens, the people at the bottom, is where it all starts. The kids that got to go to school, the transparency and a full explanation as to why we're in this position we're in, and why can't we get the funds that were available on a certain date that you were approved for. So I say this in peace. Let the people benefit from the work you guys put in. Okay?
Appreciate it. We get your point, and certainly, I'm going to ask, and here in a public meeting is not the venue, but we'll ask the manager to brief us and us. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Mayor, we'll follow up with the gentleman and get the details and get back to you.
All right. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, a couple new councilmen, our standbys. I just want to bring it to all of our attention, from the citizens to all you fine folks up here, that we've got some new blood. And as I said the last time I was here, we're watching. You guys work for us. We don't work for you. There's a lot of things in this city that need repair, cleanup, help. It doesn't fall on one person, I get it. The police department. I live out east. Those poor guys and girls run 24/7. I want to thank you for making it happen. I told you before, I never want your job, because everybody says, oh, it's him, it's her, it's her. Bull crap. It takes your whole staff, not just you, to run this city, because without them, you're nobody. So I just ask, with the new blood that we have in there now, let's all work together. It's real simple. If you guys got so much like we have in the House right now, a bunch of babies wanting a fist fight, can't even work together to get anything accomplished, I'm asking you to please put your own agendas aside and do the right thing. Because remember, you work for the people, we don't work for you.
Next speaker. Anyone else? Is there anyone online? Hi, good evening.
My name is Leslie Fleischfesser, the wife of the one that just spoke. I have come here only a few times, and it looks like I need to come some more. I just want to turn to Chief Rowe. Thank you so much for always supporting, even through a phone call, that you took care of what was ailing us. Thank you, police officers, for taking care of our community. We so appreciate it. Thank you, elected officials, for what you do. Your job is very difficult. We do know. I am a teacher, and when I teach children, I always want to teach them through my teaching integrity, truth, honesty. You know, we know that you do work for us. That is a given. But sometimes when I walk around the city, I wonder, where are the officials that have these buildings that should be worked on? New buildings building right up next to the one that should be torn down, that are rat infested. Roads that are flooding. You can see, go around the city tonight and see our roads, flooded. So flooded that we can't pass through. Newer roads. But one thing I really want to stress, your job is very, very difficult. I know this. I'm a teacher. When I walk around and I go to CVS and Walgreens and their lights are not working, and that makes me fear. So what I'm asking the officials is to please come out of your homes at night. Look at these businesses that do not have lights on. They're not on. They're there, but they're not on. I, as a woman, basically never go anywhere without that man right there. But I do know this. I fear during the day sometimes. They cannot be everywhere at one time. Hire more people. When we do hire, please, for God's sakes, let's make sure they have truth, integrity, and everything when they are hired. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
we have one online.
Okay.
Brandy Ramirez.
All right, good evening, Ms. Ramirez. Go ahead. Ms. Ramirez, can you hear us?
Can you hear me, Mayor?
We can, yes.
Okay, my name is Brandy Ramirez, 2231 Southeast 1st Street. I wanted to congratulate the mayor and new council that came on. Congratulations. We're looking forward to seeing the change that the residents want to see in the community. Also wanted to say congratulations to Councilman Clemente Canaval for winning the seat 6. Was happy to support in his campaign. Also to the Mayor Lochner. Now the community can see some change happen, and we're looking forward to it for our community of Homestead. Also the community, please, just a friendly reminder, let's all do our part to help support mayor and council by serving on subcommittees. I first would like to ask the community to please sign up. It's online, the form. You can register, and let's do our part. It's not only just on mayor and council, but the residents as well. And I look forward to seeing the change. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another one. Sure. Ramiro Orta.
Go ahead. Mr. Orta, go ahead. Mr. Orta, can you hear us? Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me, Mayor?
We can, yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Ramiro Orta, 2040 Southeast 19th Street. Just want to be quick. I just want to welcome the new council and mayor. I just want to wish you guys luck. There is a tough road ahead, and very tough decisions need to be made sooner than later. And I just want to remind you guys of the issues that were brought forward during your campaigning, one of them being the Homestead Power, infrastructure, traffic, and the one-year moratorium that some of you promised us. That is much needed, especially in Homestead. And also, let's not forget to address the Parks and Rec, especially JD Red, where some parents are still having issues with the current president at the park. So if you guys can please address those issues, we'll greatly appreciate it. And once again, we wish you luck and thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night. All right, last chance for in-person. Good evening.
My name is Hannibal Burton. I reside at 2251 Southeast 25th Avenue. I'm also the chair of the Miami-Dade Economic Advocacy Trust. And I stand here tonight because I understand there is a initiative to move some funds in the special events budget. And what I want to make sure is that those funds are not taken away from the few black events that are geared towards this city, because there are a limited number of those events already. And then taking those funds, I know they have to be taken from somewhere. So we want to ensure that those events are not affected. That's my sole purpose for being here tonight.
Thank you. Any further? Any further public comment? All right, we will close the public comment section of the agenda. And as I started to say a few moments ago, before I got off script here on the agenda, if there's no objection from a majority of my colleagues, I would like to jump to the few items under my business, and that may allow some of you who are here to engage in those discussions, and then not have to sit here all night as we hear the other items. My first item tonight, I've asked the city attorneys to brief the council, and this is as much for the public as it is the new members and the rest of us, just where we need to go. We give them some indication of any further discussion on a temporary residential moratorium. So, Mr. White?
Sure, Mayor. We'll start from the basic bird's eye view of the concept of a moratorium. A moratorium is a growth management tool that is available and can be utilized by local governments to place a temporary pause on development, whether it's residential development, commercial development, industrial development. The parameters are set by the local government. It is done pursuant to a public hearing, to an ordinance, right? In order to establish a temporary moratorium, you all will need to decide what the scope of the moratorium is, right? What it is that we're putting a pause on, the type of applications, in this case residential, what does that cover? And you all can specify that, the scope, and then you also need to, we need to have a rationale behind why we're doing it, right? What are we looking at? What are we examining, right? It could be anything from re-examining the comprehensive plan, density requirements, re-examining, looking at, studying, modifying land development regulations, looking at various adequate public facilities, levels of service. There's a host of different things that can be utilized and studied by a local government in the parameters of establishing this moratorium. Under Florida law, moratoriums temporary in nature, and so the time frame that we start with in a moratorium is generally anywhere from 6 months to 1 year as the primary. And that places a pause on whatever you set the line in the sand, who's included, what's not included, what's covered, what isn't covered. And the ordinance will specify all of that. and depending on where you all want to go, that's what the ordinance will entail. Generally for a year, on its own terms, it can be terminated earlier if you all accomplish whatever you set out to do or study or modify or change. If not, and we run into the 1-year prohibition timeframe, as long as we're able to show that we're making some efforts, that we're able to demonstrate that we're not finished, then we can extend the moratorium for an additional time frame, usually 6 months. But if we're not able to show anything, then really the courts don't like that. So they sort of frown upon that, and any extension might be invalidated, right? So we just want to be within the legal limits, and that's sort of the grand scheme bird's eye view of what a moratorium is as a growth management tool that can be utilized by local governments. So if this is something that you all want to explore and talk about, I mean, certainly I'll take any direction from you all, but in the past, we've had a workshop so that we could have a more fruitful discussion and conversation, and I can sort of lead you down, okay, well, this is the first step. What are we going to include? What do we need? What are we doing? And figure out all those different details in order for me to put into writing draft an ordinance, which would then be advertised if you all decided to proceed with that, advertised, public hearing, and then it would go into effect, and then we would execute the terms of the moratorium, depending on what that is and what it includes.
So essentially, you're going to need some consensus, or requesting some consensus to, let's set a workshop and have that couple of hour conversation of the detailed ins and outs, who would be impacted, who would not, what level of density, and what areas of issues are we going to study as a result of that moratorium. And, you know, for our new members and even some who've never been through that full conversation, we could take all night here, and we don't intend to do that. So it's just some consensus, or at least a majority consensus, that we want to go forward with that further investigation and discussion. So I'd love to hear from my colleagues your thoughts on that. Start, Councilman Davis.
Mayor, I would say that I support this effort. I think that it's time that we take that moment of reflection, look back, using good management technique, and say, okay, this is what we're looking at, and this is what we want to see in the end. And I think that's a very wise route for us to take, and I think one that is very timely as well.
Thank you. Councilman Cannonball? Okay, well, we don't have a motion yet. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I too agree with the opportunity that presents itself in front of us to have a workshop. There's a lot of technical details that we need to get into, specifically whether it's city-owned property, privately owned, commercial, all of that has to come on the table. And I know we don't want to belabor that tonight, but also we don't want to bring in the commercial side because we want commercial still to come down. So
absolutely,
I think we need to keep that off of the table. But looking forward, I don't know when we can have the earliest workshop. Let's do it as soon as we can.
Yeah, we're getting it. So, Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the last time we discussed a moratorium concept, it was not the right time, but I think now is the time. We've had several projects that came through over the last couple of years that we were all in favor of, and I think now's the time to sit back and take these infrastructure improvements into consideration and decide how we're going to move forward. Definitely promoting commercial development is a priority. So I look forward to the workshop. Thank you.
Yeah, and let me interject. And one of the big new elephants in the room since we last had this conversation was the potential worst-case scenario impact of not only the Live Local Act, but the rapid transit overlay that the county has imposed upon us, and that could potentially be thousands of new units aggregated into a very small area. Well, thank you. Councilwoman Bailey?
I support it as well.
Thank you. Councilman Roth?
I like workshops.
That's where we're going. We're going to a full-blown, open, more relaxed, informal, give-and-take discussion. So I think that's necessarily where we have to go. So is that what you need, Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor. I can coordinate with Development Services and the city manager to get something, workshop scheduled. In an effort to help facilitate your conversation, I'll include some reference materials in the workshop agenda materials. But also, if I recall correctly, and this is going back 3-4 years now, we had a series of workshops before COVID, and one of those last workshops, we had gotten to the point where you all had requested an inventory map, basically, of projects that had been approved, what was left. And so I was just talking to Mr. Cordino. I think we could dust that off, update it so that you could have the most recent sort of snapshot of what we're dealing with, what's left in the city, where things are. If that's,
yeah,
if you all are okay with
Sure.
that.
Yeah, and even collecting information from the school board and the charter school providers. That's a huge issue right now, as you know, it keeps coming forward. So thank you. Look forward to scheduling that sometime between next Thursday and whenever Christmas Day is. Okay. Oh, is that all you need on that one? All right. My next item is tab 24, and it's twofold. And let me set the stage for this. Our charter prohibits, and this provision probably goes back 40 years or so ago. Our charter prohibits the city council from terminating the employment of a city manager for a period of 90 days following an election for any reason. It's sometimes been referred to as the cooling off period. And I respect that. I understand that. That's the law of the land. But for myself and for the input that I've gotten across the community since mid-June, I think it's my strong feeling that we need to begin to lay the groundwork to change leadership styles, direction, vision, philosophy of leadership and management. So the first part of my item is to go ahead and give notice to the city manager that his contract will not be renewed upon its expiration in January of 25. So what we're doing is we would be advancing that notice from sometime in July of 24 to now. And the second part of that would be a clear direction to the manager, prohibiting him from entering into any other employment type agreements, renewing or amending any of the existing agreements that may be in place without council approval during the remainder of his time here. And I'm not really anticipating or imputing, but I think we can all think of situations where golden parachutes were handed out to others who didn't previously have them. And if at some point in the future we do have a new manager, I do not want that manager's hands to be tied, nor the city to be held financially hostage by virtue of employment and similar type contracts that do not exist now being handed out by this manager to create a disincentive for a new manager to assemble his or her team in the future. So this is not an attempt at a premature attempt at a termination. It is for me and I don't have any other way to put it other than this is my personal vote of no confidence going forward, and a clear signal and a message that at some point in the future, with the consent of a majority of this council, we'll be looking for a new day-to-day administrative leader of the city. So with that, I will open that up for questions or comments from council. Good. Councilman Davis?
No, sir, I have no question at this time. I think that is a wise move that we do now, and it gives us some flexibility moving forward. So it has my support.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Cannonball.
Okay, I'm in support of your items.
Thank you, sir.
I knocked on more than 2,000 doors throughout this campaign and spoke with hundreds of residents who were unhappy and wanted to change. Okay. From garbage not being picked up, to the absence of code enforcement, power outage, and the lack of proper infrastructure and planning leading to traffic issues. It is clear that the things in this city are not moving in the right direction. Okay? While I am sure that Mr. Estrada is an honest man, I do not think this management shall be serving the city very well. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, although I may not agree 100% with how this is being done, I believe that ultimately, as part of my discussion point during my election or our campaign discussion last week when we were seated, that I did not see the city of Homestead moving forward in the right direction. I've asked for some things to be done in the next 90 days. We'll see how that works out. But let's also make sure we're very clear and understanding of the costs of terminating somebody early, because there's some potential extensive costs that the taxpayers would be on the hook for. So I'll go with the will of the council on this, but as of right now, he's still the city manager.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with your position that if in the future we go forward and there were a majority vote to terminate the contract prior to its expiration date, there is a cost that comes with that. There is a contractual cost, and certainly, at that point in the future, we're not going to ignore that or be unmindful of that, the contractual rights that the manager would have in the event of early termination. Absolutely. Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. There's always room for improvement. They hear it every month. But what I can tell you is that I have never been disappointed with the effort and with the response to our requests, to our concerns. At least for me, their drive and their desire to want to work in a beautiful city and to meet our demands and to provide results has always been a priority to them. And I get it, 100%. I understand that promises kept, promises made. But I would ask for my colleagues to try to work with what we have for now. And in 90 days, as Councilman Fletcher, Vice Mayor, mentioned, it feels good to say that, Sean. As the way Vice Mayor said it, he made demands that let's see what happens in 90 days. We need a plan, we need an action, step by step on how we're going to handle these items that we all care about, that we all want to see improved. And we can give notice at that time, if that's the will of the council. So I don't think that it's necessary to act harshly or prematurely to make a point or to drive a point. And I can respect the reason why this is on here, Mayor, and if change drives, prosperity and improvement for our city, then that's a win-win for everybody. I don't think anybody is against wanting to see things improve, but I think we need to do it the right way. And I would just respectfully ask that my new colleagues get to experience some of what I've been able to experience. And I haven't been in politics or been on commission for 10 years or even 5 years. I was appointed in 2020. But my experience through dealing with staff and getting through a pandemic, dealing with their ability to handle emergency situations, dealing with our police department and all of the staff and all of the employees that we have. How many employees do we have on payroll? 500 employees. That's a lot. That's a lot for a team to handle. And I think that they're doing a great job. But again, there's always room for improvement. And I think that the mayor has all of our support in making sure that things get done and they get done quickly, and that they are not just barely checking the boxes, but that they're doing a great job and they're knocking these balls out of the park. We've got a lot of projects in the pipeline that we started together that I think it's essential that we finish. And it really is a little scary for me to think that we're going to turn up a new leaf so quickly and efficiently with a new manager, and that doesn't work out that way. So it's like changing contractors in the middle of a job. You kind of need to finish what we start, but I understand the concern about bringing or starting new contracts without council approval. I think we kind of already do that. A lot of the stuff has to come to us first. If there is something, Mayor, that you think that should be paused or call an emergency meeting, I'll be happy to support those items too, so we can monitor closely. So call it a probation period, but I would prefer to go that route than to just do a swift notice of termination. And I would ask that my colleagues respect that. Thank you.
And again, just to clarify, it's not a notice of termination. This is just a notice of non-renewal well in advance. I just want to be really clear because, you know, some of our earlier speakers tonight, obviously, there's some hysteria and misinformation out there. But thank you, and I appreciate and respect your comments. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I can't believe I've been through 3 city managers. It doesn't feel like that long. George, Kate, and Jerry. I've always been a huge supporter of hiring from within. Not only have you guys always been incredibly responsive and thorough with the things that I happen to ask about, I know that you're very well respected and liked by many departments. And I don't know if it's because I work so close here, but I happen to know a lot of our city employees. And I always ask those questions. You know, you could tell me, wink, wink, because I want to know. I want to make sure that what they're telling us during meetings is the same as what they would say outside of them. And that has always been what I've gotten. So I am always a supporter for doing whatever the city needs to improve. But I do ask our newly elected officials to give them a chance, figure out a few things that you heard along the way, and find out what some of those issues have been of why we haven't been able to do it. Trash, one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't even get me started on trash, but it is something that is happening everywhere. And it's not an easy solution. And if we found a solution, I bet that they would bend over backwards and make it happen. But sometimes those solutions are just not as easy to find. So with that being said, you know, get to know them, the team. I guarantee you, you ask them anything and they know it. It's, you know, yeah, I'll say, did you think about that? Yes, actually, this is what happened. And so as far as the things that I've brought up, I have always been very impressed with how thorough, and so that's what I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Roth, and let me apologize for calling on you last. Every time we go somewhere in public, somehow you're at the end of the line, and we'll try not to do that in the next go-around.
Thank you. That's okay. I'm used to it. I simply think it's a little premature as well. Listening to the short conversations we've had here. I've never had an issue. I've always been supported. And I believe everybody up here has the same experience. It's hard to comprehend someone who's worked for the city for nearly 30, 35 years, as Jerry Estrada has, to face this challenge 2 days after an election or 2 days after a swearing in. I truly think it's premature. I think it's short-sighted. And I think that, as my colleagues have said, we need to give the new elected officials an opportunity to work with staff, work with our attorneys, work with our departments, and understand that they are doing everything they possibly can. And we up here as a dais have to continue to give them everything we possibly can to do their jobs, to do them efficiently, and to do it where the majority of the people are satisfied. In life, we all know we're not going to satisfy everybody. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But as a former business owner, I knew when I had to cut ties with certain employees. The motivation was no longer there. The desire to serve was no longer there. And if that were the case here, I would be standing side by side with the mayor and saying, yes, it's time for you to go. But in my heart and in my soul, in my experiences with you, our police chief, our command staff, that's not the case. So I cannot support even giving notice to a non-renewal of a contract a year and a half out. We go through the 90-day probationary period, as someone had mentioned up here. Let our new electeds experience what I've experienced over the last 8 years here. It's not perfect, I get it. And sometimes change is good, I get that too. But it's hard for me to imagine that 2 days after swearing in, a week after an election, that newly elected officials actually have the opportunity to experience what I've experienced. So I can't support giving notice. And as to part B of the conversation, I'm not sure why this has even been brought up, because none of these things are normally done without being brought forward to us prior to anything being signed. We have to agree to allow these things to happen. It's not at the will of the city manager to do. So I can't support either one of these two tonight. And I would urge my colleagues to take the 90-day challenge that the vice mayor has given to the manager, and we'll revisit this in 90 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman Roth. I do want to clarify one issue on.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number.
Am I in the other world now? That with respect to some of the contracts that may be impacted in preparing for tonight with the attorneys, there are in fact contracts that were approved a decade ago that are self-renewing without coming back to council in the discretion of the city manager and the employee who holds the right to have that contract. So there are contracts out there that do not come back to council that, many years ago, before I think any of us were here, there's at least one such contract, a pretty significant contract, that does exist. And that was my, my reasoning there, that, typically, I think they should. Everything should come back to us, but there are certain contracts that are written now that do not come back to us. And the vice mayor brought up the issue that I fully recognize, that terminating some contracts, contracts provide rights to both parties, and there is a huge expense involved in that. And I don't want us and a future manager to be handcuffed financially by those documents that the manager in his discretion could in fact renew, amend, extend. So that was my reasoning there. But, generally, and I hope that in the future we can get back on track with all contracts and all renewals of this category would come back to council. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this matter? Any public comment? Please come forward. Give us your name and address for the record.
See Fleischfesser. I didn't give my address last time, 2590 Southeast, 5th Court, Northgate. I'm always a firm believer that the old school can teach new school things. Vice versa. That's what a round table's for, okay? I want to really ask you tonight, if you've already made up your mind, you've already made up your mind. But please, these thoughts. When we're trying to make a change, whether it be for today, going forward, or in 2025, going forward, to really think about what is the agenda. Are we making this change because of a personal agenda? Are we making these change for us, for you, everybody out there? What is the agenda for? If it's going to cost me more money, well, no thank you. If we're going to be doing this anytime soon. We pay enough. We don't need to pay any more. Anything that's going to cost us more money, no thanks, okay? So please, when you're making these decisions, new councilmen, those that have been here for a while, these men, okay? Whatever it is, please think about what is the agenda. Is the agenda your thoughts, or is it for the people that sit in front of you tonight? I can only ask that it's for the people and only the people, and that's why you're there, for the people, not for your own agendas.
Thank you. And let me say for myself, if you watched or if you go home and watch the swearing in, I think those of us who were recently elected and reelected, we made very clear that our actions are for the people, and we've heard the people loud and clear. It's not about personal agenda. It's about an agenda of what's best for the city. Good evening. Thank you. Hi.
Good evening. Cardell Hayes, 3910 Northeast 13th Drive. Congratulations again to the newly elected and also the re-elected people on the dais. So in regards to, specifically to the manager, is there a domino effect with your proposal of him, and will that impact other departments? Meaning, because he's over other departments, is the CRA involved, and is the police department involved? What are the impacts with the manager renewal? That's one question. And then you mentioned earlier about certain contracts that does not need to come back to the council. Can you expand on that? Which contracts those are that does not need to come back to the council for a conversation? And then I want to thank you guys, first of all, because your service is very important. A lot of my friends here, good to see you, Sean. I know you had some challenges, so thank you guys.
Well, let me, and I'm sure a lot of people in public who are here and are watching maybe have some of those same questions. And we have a really unique legal form of government here. We have a city manager council form of government. We sit as a board of directors. The city manager runs the day-to-day functions of the city. In theory, we give policy direction, and the manager implements that. We as elected officials only have hiring and firing authority, if you will, over the manager, the city clerk, the city attorneys, and the external auditor. That's it. Every other city employee is here ultimately at the will and pleasure, subject to collective bargaining agreements, when you're at that level, to the city manager. So to your question, a new manager could come in and over a long period of time, assemble a new team. This council does not direct that. We are prohibited from directing a manager to terminate a given person. That's not the form of government we have, which opposed to the county executive mayor and the city of Florida City, for example. You know, and I'd be happy to talk privately with you about my concerns. Underlying this discussion for me is the accountability. For me, it's I won't say failure, the unwillingness in my eyes of this manager to hold employees downstream accountable. That's my underlying issue.
All right. I appreciate that. You know, actually, everyone's comment has been really great because I don't know him personally, but what matters most to me is procedures and policy. Councilman Roth spoke, I think, very straightforward, and I feel comfortable with that, particularly if certain people don't know someone personally. That goes along. I don't know him personally, but I have trust in what someone says in a process of this nature. I live here, so I want to make sure that the city is following due process, and to make sure that everyone has a fair, you know, take care from every department. I understand everything you said about all of the who's responsible and whatnot, but it means a lot as a resident living here that I know and can be comfortable with the people who are doing the good work each and every day for the city of Homestead. I don't think there's an agenda. That's not my mind. My mind is on process, in the due process of how things work. That's what matters most. And to make sure, and excuse me, you know, Hannibal spoke earlier, what it means from a cultural standpoint, that people who are here, who's doing the good work, that all cultures here in Homestead is represented. The diocese is a little bit different, but that's okay. What matters is that everyone is represented and processes help, you know, make things happen that way. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Anyone else?
I failed to announce my name first time up. Maybe I was nervous, a little afraid, maybe some new people. David Fleischfresser.
Because I know you.
What's that?
Probably because I know you. I didn't hear that you didn't introduce yourself.
I know a few extra ones here. You even came to my house. I appreciate that. You'll get my vote next time as well.
Sorry, you can't.
Why?
Term limits.
What's his
He
limit?
and I both.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, you're up too then, right? It's what?
Yeah, we just
6 years?
slogged through an election and are facing term limits.
Okay. Anyway, David Fleischfresser, 2590 Southeast 5th Court, Homestead, Florida. Just to feed off of what you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, about agenda or whatever, maybe it might have been the wrong word. But my thought on it is you mentioned about what you ran on your election for, what you guys stated. That's all good, but based on the City of Homestead records that I looked up, 8.8% of the people of the city voted. So 91.2% of the people didn't have that same thought. Possibly. We don't know. It's an assumption. But Vice Mayor Fletcher, you brought up this 90-day proposal. I encourage you to talk to your new councilman, because to just jump on a whim and flip something over just doesn't seem practical. I'm in business as well, and that's not all. It may seem the right thing to do at the moment, but there could be long-term effects. So all I'm doing is encouraging you as the leader and your people under you to sleep on it. Think about it. Because when you make a decision, sometimes it's permanent, and you look back, as we all have done, I have, and realize, man, I screwed up. Can't always go back and undo it.
Thank you.
For your time.
Anyone else? Is anyone online? Okay. Mr. Orta? Oh, let's go to Ramiro. He's online.
Okay.
Mr. Orta? Okay, Ms. Ramirez. Were we out in the lobby calling in?
Sorry, I was driving. Brandy Ramirez, 2231 Southeast. Want me to wait? Southeast First Street. I just became aware of the topic that you guys are discussing, reference city manager. I just want to remind old council, new council, everybody, including the mayor. Change is not a bad thing. Maybe it's about time. Residents are watching and listening. You made promises. Hold up to those promises. I say that not because I have anything personal against the city manager, but I think it's been given opportunity long enough. And I believe Vice Mayor Fletcher, you've been part of that long time, previous 4 years. There's been a lot of intimidation and no transparency. And that intimidation runs deep inside the police department and other departments inside the city. Some may not be strong enough to come up here and say that. But if you look at the room full right now, that was intimidation to be here, a must. That's not correct in the police department. What I'm saying is not to say bad about the police department. We do need our police department. I have always been a #1 supporter of Homestead Police Department. But change is needed. The residents voted for the change, or you wouldn't be sitting in the seats. I wouldn't have fought for that change either. Everyone in the city of Homestead knows I fought for that. And the change won. So I hope you do take the time, and there's 2 years coming up. Residents are watching that. And I have trust and belief in you making some strong change for a better Homestead. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Orta on now? Go ahead, Mr. Orta.
Hello, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Romero Orta, 2040 Southeast 19th Street. Mayor, I understood the assignment. You're basically informing the city managers that you're not renewing his contract when it expires. I understand, and I completely agree with you. I can speak for many residents within the city of Homestead who, during the elections, just like they went to you, they came to us and they informed us that they're not happy with the current management that oversees certain departments, specifically parks, because to this day, many residents came to the dais pleading with you guys of issues going on at a certain park. According to the city manager, it's been handled. It has not. Issues are ongoing. Parents are still unhappy. I think it's time that you guys really hold Jerry accountable when it comes to holding that park more accountable, because kids are still being harassed and embarrassed in public. And I have videos if you guys want to see that. So I ask, please, inform Jerry, enforce what you guys have him there for. Accountability, make sure every department's up to par with no issues. But at the same time, I agree with you. I think it's time we move on in a new direction with a new city manager. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Does that finish out those online? All right, last call for public comments here.
Good evening, Neville Maldonado, 18 35th Avenue. Sorry, just getting over a cold. Congratulations to everyone who won. Just want to give you want to say thank you for running and wanting to make a difference in this community. And I just want to say this regarding the discussion we're having about management. I went through management change, and that change did bring about good, but it happened because there was some very bad things happening when we came in. That being said, I want to say that when I was on council in 2009 and we came in, it took us about 4 years to finally get things up and running because of all the changes that happened because of the change of the city manager. And I'll tell you this, because we hired a city manager, and with that city manager who used this existing staff, I think the only person they changed was maybe the Department of Finance. That was someone who wasn't willing to work with the team. It was this team here that brought us to where we are today. When I came on board to the city council, the city was in debt millions of dollars. And it took us almost 6 to 8 years to right that ship, to solve all the problems. So we left this city in a good position with a balanced budget. That was something that in the history of Homestead never happened for the longest. We were always in the red. Mayor, if you could recall as well, you guys were almost going bankrupt as a city when you were serving on council. And so it took some time till we finally, again, when I came on board, we were in the red, millions of dollars. It was this staff with George Gretzas that got us to where we are today, and that is a balanced budget and a city that works. We have some quirks always to still work out, and I would just ask that you would take the time, and if anything, I would say this most to Tom Davis, take the time to learn and understand the truth of how things really work here, and not let's just follow the agenda. Thank you.
Let me just say for the public that under the Citizens Bill of Rights in Miami-Dade County, we are obligated to speak the truth as we sit here. The same does not necessarily apply to those who make public comment. Yes, sir. Come on down.
Good evening again. Hannibal Burton, 2251 Southeast 25th Avenue. I would just like to reemphasize the imploration by several people that have stood up and spoke that before making this decision, that you look at the processes and the history of what is going on, especially we're talking about recent years. We're just coming out of COVID. So if we go back 4 years, we spent the majority of that dealing with COVID and the after effects thereof. And a lot of that has to do with everything that's happened in Miami-Dade County. Now, I'm not speaking because I don't know the county manager personally, but I know situations in Miami as they've occurred in recent years. So I think we need to take a moment to review that first before we make this decision. That's my imploration. And after that, I would like that whatever decision is made, we talk about the trickle-down effect, that we look at all of those positions fairly and make sure that those individuals, because you say that you don't have any sway on that, but we know as a council, everybody underneath you, you have sway on. So again, I ask that the processes be looked at before we make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, I want to come back to you. I'm going to close this and we'll come back. Last call for public comment. All right, I'll close the public comment and I'll turn the floor over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to kind of touch a little bit on what Mr. Fleifischer said earlier in regards to 8.8% of the community coming out and voting. Absolutely horrible. But I'm going to give you one of the reasons why I think that happens is Homestead is a bedroom community. A couple of weeks ago, I went and sat at a local establishment here to watch a football game. And there was a young couple that came and sat down next to me who were homeowners in the city of Homestead. And I just said hello to them as they sat down next to me, and we started talking. And I said, you know, there's an election coming up. And they go, yeah, we don't care. I work in Miami. I come home. I go to sleep here in Homestead because this was an affordable house for me. And I drive to Miami, and I come back home and I go to sleep. A lot of people don't care what happens. That's a sad state of affairs. We have to get people engaged. That's on us, but it's also on the residents. We also talked about, change. Change is never easy. In my 30 years of professional career in electric utilities, change is constant, but it's hard. People don't like it. Some people are happy, some people are sad, but change is often necessary in order to make things move forward. The decisions we make up here are very difficult. There's no personal attacks when I'm making a decision here, and I'm taking my input from the residents of Homestead on where they see the direction of this city going. You had said the roads are flooding right now. That's because we haven't done certain things. I'm not blaming that all on the city manager, but that's part of it. You know, there's garbage all around the city. I think the city looks worse than it has in my entire lifetime. I don't want to sit here and restate everything I said the other night, but sometimes change is needed. You also have to have a little vision for the future. And somebody new can come in with new ideas and give us that maybe a new idea that we've never thought of. When going to talk about the trickle-down effect and how it may affect other departments, I think that we as a collective body should be able to hold that manager accountable to prevent him from getting rid of certain people that are replacing them with his new employees. There's a lot of knowledge out here of these folks that have been here for years, but we haven't had succession planning done either in a lot of departments. Again, that's a vision of somebody who's a leader who needs to be in that position. Lack of actions have consequences. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything further? All right, do we have a motion on my item which would effectively provide notice that the contract will not be renewed on its expiration date and issuing the prohibition against the entering into
Mayor,
new or amended?
Mayor, can I?
Yes.
Thank you. I know when I took this job that I serve at the pleasure of council. That comes with the territory. And that could have been from day one to the end of the 3-year contract. All I ask is of the new council members to please keep an open mind, work with me, work with our staff, and see the challenges we face here. These aren't challenges that started today. These are challenges that started over a decade ago. Whether it was not raising fees or rates, in other words, to not raise the cost of living in this community in order to help out with an election, okay? And I think the councilman said inaction has consequences. And there was inaction, okay? With that being said, I hope you guys can keep, or you councilmen can keep an open mind, and I can guarantee you over the next 90 days, you'll see really, once again, the challenges we face here, and I hope there'll be a change of mind. With that being said, Mayor, in terms of the contracts, the only employment contracts that exist is me and the chief, and those both were council approved. Now, true, the chief's agreement was approved years ago, and that council gave the city manager the authority to go ahead and renew those agreements. But I understand you have a concern that, you know, these are perpetual agreements and, you know, after time, you know, you guys don't see them, so you really don't know what's going on. So I have no issue to bringing the reoccurring agreements to council for renewal. And with that, the first one I'm going to bring next month is the chief's agreement to see if you guys want to renew it and move it forward. Thank you.
That just steals my resolve, and I hereby call a special call city council meeting for February 6th, 2024 to consider the termination of the manager's contract. Your last comment there cements in my mind who the real power is here. And Jerry Estrada, it is not you. Period. That's all I'm going to say. We don't need to have this debate publicly. But I will never understand your loyalty to staff across the board that have shown incompetence, illiteracy, an unethical conduct, and you continue to excuse it in code enforcement, in solid waste, in utilities, across the board. And I didn't want to have to open this can of worms tonight. And when we met the other day, you know, you're living in a bubble in this Taj Mahal. You don't get what's going on out there in the streets. I hear that there are 13 police officers about to leave the department or talking about leaving the department. It took us 3 years to hire the 12 new ones or 14 new ones that we've authorized since I became mayor. There's a problem, but yet you are going to bring a contract renewal. And, you know, it's highly ironic. My first term or the second term, we started with an orchestrated love fest for somebody. Same folks are here tonight. You beat me up online, you worship certain department heads, and I'd love to have a private conversation with you and give you the other side of the story. And I think it tells me all I need to know, that there are folks, you're out of order. You're out of order. You were here for the orchestrated love fest for Al Roll at the beginning of one of my last 2 terms. One more outburst and you're out of here. That I see who the real power behind the throne is. You are an impotent manager, Mr. Manager, and my city cannot go forward. Mr. Fletcher was right. The wheels have fallen off. It's a dumpster fire, and it's a slow motion train wreck. And until we have someone who doesn't have long-term friendships and social relations with staff, I have no confidence that nothing is going to change. So we'll have this vote tonight, but I hereby call a special call meeting for day 91 following the election to consider your termination. And between now and then, we'll have advice on to what that financial that obligation may be. I hope that a majority of my colleagues will recognize that we don't need to be penny wise and pound foolish. It's worth it to move forward with a newer, more competent vision. Your arrogance in the face of this astounds me. I really regret that we are at this place. That you stand with folks through thick and thin, the public be damned. And this brings up another issue. There is a real imbalance in our charter between the power of the manager and the power of this council. And I'm not advocating for a strong mayor form of government in any way, shape, or form, but I am advocating that we move forward to balance the power between mayor and council as a body and the manager. There is way too much discretion out there, in my opinion, and that's a conversation for another day. So do I have a motion to approve these 2 items? Moved by Councilman Cannonball. We have a second.
I second.
Seconded by Councilman Davis. Thank you. Roll call, Madam
I'm sorry,
Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, can I just get a little clarification? I understand A, but on B, there are day-to-day items that are taken care of with the city that are need to
Right, I'm
be
talking-
effectuated. Can we curtail or just craft a motion that addresses the ongoing needs to operate the city.
Well,
in
no,
terms
and that's
of-
not the intention
No, I
here
know.
of this
I just-
item, to do that, and the maker of the motion would clarify that this is not about
Employment
every little
agreements?
This is
Oh, okay.
employment, long-term professional service agreements.
Okay.
All right, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth? No. Councilwoman Avila?
No.
Councilwoman Bailey?
No.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Cannibal? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you all. And thank you to the public for your input, and we're going to be totally transparent. The next time we hire a city manager, it's not going to be as a non-agenda item at midnight. Okay, my next item was to, to allocate $35,000 to have a skating rink as part of the holiday festivities in Losner Park. And this is something I've been asking for a couple of years. After we finished the budget process, I made inquiry to staff as to what had been allocated. And again, that goes to that there's just a lot of ambiguity and discretion there in the expenditure of city monies. I mean, clearly, there was money allocated for the Veterans Day, and we'll talk about that later, and what a fantastic event. Black History Month, Juneteenth, and enhancing some of the other legacy and new events that the council approves funding for on an annual basis. So I learned that only $6,000 had been programmed to put a skating rink in Losner Park in conjunction with the tree lighting. And when we did the math, that $6,000 would only provide one day, meaning 4 hours of ice skating. And at best, when we did the math, that was about 250 people. And I didn't feel as though that was a good bang for the buck, nor did it really meet what I think we need to have. And I've talked to so many people, even over the last year, even after the last Christmas event, about the idea. And, you know, young families are just enthralled with it. I think we would have people from all over South Florida coming here to ice skate in the tropics and in the park around our Christmas tree. So the manager suggested to me that we come to council and ask for an affirmative direction to allocate an additional amount or a higher amount so that we could extend the period of time within which to have that skating rink in conjunction with our holiday items. So I was asking for council to discuss and potentially direct the manager to allocate, and again, they'd already allocated $6,000, as I understand it, allocate $35,000 to have some additional days for that amenity. Because, I mean, those of us who campaign door to door, we heard it over and over again. There's nothing to do. There's nothing going on. And, you know, we're building upon the Veterans Day event, the 4th of July event. We took the swearing in up several notches the other night, and I think this is just one of those things that I hope I have your support to issue that direction. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments from council. Councilwoman Bailey?
Mayor, what would the dates be if it was more than one day?
Well, $6,000 was one day. Mr. Manager, have you or your staff made any calculation on what $35,000 would get us?
Perhaps we can get a week. We have to go ahead and refresh the quotes from the vendors and find out if they're still available, by the way.
Sure, understood. Understood.
So the week of December,
From the tree lighting forward, from the 2nd to whatever.
okay, thank you.
Councilman, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So where would these funds have initially come from? From the Special Events Fund, reallocated from other programs?
I'm hoping to get council approval. Remember, we received over $100,000 from the Shores Agreement for the fill. That money has not been allocated anywhere at this point. So that would be a bucket we could actually take that money from without taking it from other special events.
Okay, and one final question. I know we have a reserve balance that should be in a emergency reserve balance that should be in an interest-bearing account. Is there a way maybe to siphon off some of that interest to offset these costs rather than pulling it from other funds? Don't know if that's legal or not. I'm just asking the question.
Here comes Carlos.
Mayor and Council, good evening. I believe you may be referring to the contingency account?
One with $15 million plus in it. The emergency reserve account.
What we would call, what we used to call reserve.
We used to call reserves. That I've been told every time I've asked the question, there's $15 million in it.
But I think what you're looking for is something that's already appropriated that can be used. There is a contingency account within the general fund. That would be the most available funding that you can grab if you don't want to grab from any other special events.
Thank you, that's it. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I guess we'll leave it in, to leave it in the staff's discretion to reallocate those funds. I mean, I think clearly you've heard here, let's not diminish some of the other approved special events. Was the 6,000 you were contemplating within that special events fund?
Yes, those monies were already.
It'd be another 29, or whatever
Yes.
that number is. I'm talking up to, 35,000, if it's available. Any input from council on funding sources?
The reason I was asking the dates is because we have a pretty big event on the 16th, and we were planning on having snow. So if I could ask SWAC tomorrow if they would like to move it to the 9th, I'm sure that they would be happy to pitch in for it. If we could have our holiday event on the 9th.
Or perhaps reprogram their snow budget to.
Oh, definitely.
Is that what you mean?
That's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
Instead of having the snow, that we could put it towards the
Yeah.
ice skating
And
rink
that's probably
and
what,
have the
only a
event there.
couple, not to diminish it, a couple $1,000 anyway. Crushed ice isn't cheap.
No, it isn't.
In large
for
quantity
water.
anymore for snow.
Yeah, I'll bring it up at tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, so appreciate that. All right, do you have the marching orders you need, Mr. Manager?
Yes, I do,
All
Mayor.
right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, so do we have a motion to direct that? Do we need a motion, Mr. Pearl?
Yes, we can get a consensus, and did we determine the ultimate funding source, where you wanted the money to come from? I know the manager had raised the unappropriated shores funds, and then in addition, the finance director mentioned that you also had contingency funds built into this year budget that could be more easily appropriated. If the motion could, if
So
get
it
a
sounds like the
consensus
most
on
appropriate
the
fund
money.
is a contingency fund, maybe offset to the extent that the Southwest Advisory Council agrees to reallocate their funding for the snow.
If they take that action.
Yeah, they take that action. All right, so a motion to direct that it come from the contingency balance? Moved by the Vice Mayor. No second. Second by Councilman Cannaball. Any public discussion? All right, do we need a roll call? Yes, we need a roll call on that.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilman Cannibal? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. And my final item is a discussion with the potential to direct the city manager to reorganize the Code Enforcement Division into a standalone department under civilian command and control. You may recall that recently we reorganized, the manager reorganized solid waste from being a division under the umbrella of Public Works. Seems to be working a little better. I mean, yeah, there's a big hole to dig out of there. My concerns over the past many, many years have been no secret that, I think we can do a better job by having civilian command and control and a standalone department. I prefer the idea of having a manager directly responsible for that, because that seems to be one of the biggest ongoing issues that our constituents have. And my experience has been really twofold, that a concern about code enforcement has to go, because we are legally constrained, our communication is supposed to be solely with the manager. It's filtered from the manager, potentially to the chief, to the colonel, to the captain that is the head of the division, and then down to the coordinator. And it's just it's a lot of bureaucracy. I think we all have some ideas as to how we can go forward and do better and help the aesthetic of the city from terms of code enforcement. And I say that to say this, and this goes back to when I was a vice mayor and councilman from 2001 to 2007, that I always felt as though the pushback was when you question the focus of code enforcement, or you even ask questions or are deemed to be criticizing the work of code enforcement or the lack of some code enforcement, you are portrayed as being critical of law enforcement because it's operated out of the police station. That's never been my angle. That's how it's always been spun. And I think given the management structure that we have between mayor, council, and manager now, that it would be, I think, very beneficial to have it as a standalone department where we're closer to the everyday issues that arise. A couple of times I've wanted to have meetings about code enforcement. It was never just the in-house director. The whole entourage of command staff had to come to tell me why we couldn't do something rather than tell me how we might accomplish something. And I hope to, and look, our police department has plenty of other things to do than chase illegal dumpers and trash cans staying out too long. Not that those aren't serious issues, but I don't know that captain and that department needs to be bogged down in code enforcement. And my item tonight and my comments tonight are not critical of the officers or even, I think you call it the code coordinator now. You do what you do with the tools that you are given. So again, this is not directed to you. This is directed to the structure and a new civilian command and control, so that I think council can be more readily be engaged in that, and it's a more nimble way of management, having it here controlled from City Hall rather than in the police department. And whether or not they stay physically housed here or in the police department or moved here, that's really not the issue. I think the issue is who's ultimately responsible. Again, I think it's time for I believe it's time for some new ideas. And again, those 2,000 plus doors, and I think some of you have shared with me, had the similar experience. The appearance of our city and the perceived code enforcement problems are a close second to traffic and overdevelopment. So I just wanted to get my colleagues' feel as to where they might be on that overhaul and creating a separate and distinct department for code enforcement. So,
Mayor?
Yes.
Before we start the conversation, I just want to inform all of council, I want to say over the last 3 to 4 months, staff has been talking to the management team to see, we've been looking into restructuring code enforcement, and one of the ideas was to spin it outside of the police station. One of the challenges we have is you have 15 staff members there, and really don't have any building or facility that can handle that large of a staff move. With that being said, that does not preclude them and I'd have to work with the police station here, them staying in the police station and that yet having a civilian person overseeing them. In other words, a director, okay? But that's something I have to coordinate with the police department. There's issues there. They have computer software that can look up people's license plates, things like that, which I'm sure the police department would have issues with just letting division not under the police department having that access. So we have been looking at it, but the challenge is where we can actually put them. We've even talked about finding some facility somewhere else and renting it. So we are in the process of looking at that at this time.
Good. I appreciate hearing that. I think that's the first time that I've been briefed on that, to my recollection, although the last 4 months have been quite hectic. So that's good news. But council, comments, thoughts on that? Yes, Councilman Roth.
The civilian portion of that, I guess we created a position for that. It's a paid position within the city. But I heard a lot of conversation out there about actually creating a civilian board for code enforcement. So is it going to be just one civilian who's going to be in charge of code and supervising it, or are we going to have a board of 2 or 3 people that would live in maybe sectors of the city that would bring information to the department saying, these are some of the issues that we're seeing out there that have been overlooked? So it's just a matter of how you reorganize this. If it's going to be directed by a civilian, I'm okay with that part of it. But I think as the city expands, we have more people living in the city, it needs to go a little deeper. And we need to have more eyes and ears out there that can report, incidences and things to us. I mean, you drive, let's look at Old Dixie Highway, okay, going towards 304th Street. That's a really, really rough area in that area. 11th Street, I don't know if you're paying more attention to 11th Street, but that apartment complex, it seems to be getting picked up more routinely, but it comes back. And, it's not that our staff doesn't want to do their job. The public has to take some personal responsibility as well. And we can't always be the gatekeepers of every pile of trash that shows up in the city. Unfortunately, we can't just put a wall up and keep everybody out. People have to travel freely through this country. So, but I think having some civilian input and some other eyes and ears from different parts of the city, as I drive around, I can call and say, hey, there's a problem. And I'm sure, Mayor, as you drive around, you call and they address the problem immediately. But it's kind of like, hit and miss. If you look out at, we've been dealing with the trucks coming out of Florida City where the new Publix is, and the mess that they're creating on 344 and 167. We met out there and we observed what was going on. We got in touch with FDOT, the Florida Highway Patrol, and they started to do regular routine checks of the vehicles for safety violations. But they're really, is it a code issue over there or not? I don't know. But that development, that action that's going on there, you're talking hundreds of trucks every single day moving out of that area. But is that a code enforcement thing? I don't know. They drop debris. We've had to send our sweepers out there to clean that mess up too. But as I said, there's personal responsibility as well. It can't always be, it's the city's fault. We're not doing our jobs. We up here aren't doing our jobs. But I think if we get more people involved and more responsibility out there so that their eyes and our ears, then it would be a team effort to try to get more things done and get this area cleaned up even better and get code more efficient. I didn't realize how much manpower they had over there. And the other concern that I always thought about when we talked about these situations is the stuff that they confiscate or take or pick up or move, they have to have a place to store all that stuff as well. So that's something to consider too. So I don't know, I don't know what that is going to be, but I just wanted to add that thought process to it. So adding some people to a committee that would see, that live in different parts of the city that could help us also be the eyes and ears of the city.
Councilman, that's something definitely we can consider. I mean, one of the challenges, and I think most of the council, I know the new council members don't know, is the change in the state of Florida code of ordinances and stuff, that now when somebody reports a code violation, they must submit their name and their address, or their name and their phone number, and so that whoever the violator is has the right to call up and say, who turned me in? And so that's kind of thrown a wet blanket on people reporting code enforcement issues. In terms of your question of the structure, what we were looking, it's like solid waste. Remember, it used to be under Public Works. We spinned it off to be by itself. We put a director in place, so there's direct line of communications between the manager's office, that director, who immediately oversees solid waste. That's what we're looking at here, right? So obviously, we would have to bring a director online. There's a cost associated with that, but then there'll be a more direct supervision of that department with respect to the manager's office, okay?
Right, so I'm not talking about eyes and ears out there, people turning in their neighbors. It's more of the illegal dumping stuff that goes on, the piles that we don't see on a daily basis, the bed that's laying on the side of the road. You know, there's all kinds of things that the public can help us with, right? You know, so I understand that the state has kind of tied the public's hand with, for lack of better words, ratting out their neighbor, right, for whatever they're doing back there. But I'm talking about the obvious things, you know, like the old Dixie Highway, the 11th Street, the southwest section around those apartment complexes and all those areas that are just, you know, again, the personal responsibility of the public as well. So I don't know if we can do an awareness campaign along with doing some of these other ideas. So it's just my 2 cents worth.
You know, and while you're talking about the board, you know, first thing I thought was we used to have a code enforcement board years ago. And I guess this would be something for the attorneys to look into. If we had, think in terms of reserve police officers, the $1 a year reserve police officers, if we had the $1 a year reserve code enforcement officers who were designated as such, are they disclosable under the statute? Talking about giving us extra eyes and ears. If it was city initiated, would we protect those folks? And there would need to be some training, obviously, to be a designated reserve code enforcement officer, for lack of better expression. I wonder if those identities could be withheld from the reporting requirement.
I'm happy to explore that, and I'll come back with a firm answer on that. Another approach might be perhaps designating a beautification committee or something like that of citizens who are interested in, you know, maintaining beautification of the city. They can meet annually, bring their observations together and sort of serve as an advisory committee, perhaps, and passing their observations on. I'm happy to look at any structure that you'd like, but just, you know.
You know, and it's a little bit out in the weeds for this discussion, but I think it sounds like staff is kind of going down the road and looking at that, and I'm happy to wait, you know, if you think you can bring something next month or first meeting next year.
In terms of your suggestion?
No,
or
in
the whole
terms
department?
of, you know, apparently you all are already looking at alternatives, with one of the alternatives being creating a separate and distinct department, sort of as I have suggested. So, you know, are you far enough along that perhaps there can be some further discussion next month? Or?
We could definitely have further discussion. Obviously, that's not the only thing we're working on. There's other things in code that we're working on.
And there may be something better or a hybrid.
No, right. So like I said, big conversation with the police department. I know there's a lot of background checks and things like that are required for the staff there. And so we'll be more than happy to bring something next month to go ahead and discuss with council.
Appreciate it. So, in light of your discussion tonight about alternatives you're looking at, I'm happy to not proceed on this item tonight and see what further discussions come. So that concluded my business. Does anyone have an objection to a 5-minute recess? 5 minutes. But we're going to let this lay in light of, we'll talk in December. So let's take 5 and we'll reconvene. All right, let's try to get this moving so that we're not here until tomorrow. I did, yeah, thank you. Where are we? Okay. Looks to me we're in tab 5. Is that
Tab
what you
2, they
got?
told me. Tab 2 is the next one, they told me.
I thought we deferred it.
That's the little small lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the final of the hotel expansion. Gotcha. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience on that little much-needed break. All right, I believe our next item is tab 2, Mr. White.
Yes, Mayor, this is the quasi-judicial section of the agenda. Please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in, all testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the council to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-590, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, I'd ask council members to disclose any ex parte communications concerning any quasi-judicial item on the agenda this evening. That would be tab 2. We've deferred 3 and 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. Vice Mayor, 2 and 6. Councilman Davis, have you had ex parte communication with respect to any of these items?
Yes, sir. I've communicated with Holland and Knight as well as D.R. Horton.
And that's on the TMU item as well as the Bauman Chevrolet, correct?
Correct.
All right, same for you, Councilman? Councilman Roth? Same. Councilwoman Bailey? Same. Councilman Avila? Same. Same for myself.
Thank
All
you.
right.
So at this time, I would ask anyone who's going to be speaking or wishing to testify on the quasi-judicial items this evening to please stand, raise your right hand to be sworn in by the clerk.
Do you hereby swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Thank you. You may be seated.
First item for consideration is tab 2, card number 4095. It's a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting final plat approval as requested by Homestead Treasure 26 LLC for the expansion of the Hampton Inn Hotel on an approximately 8,671 square foot parcel of land located at 2855 Northeast 9th Street as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cordino?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We are recommending approval of the final replat pursuant to Section 25-71 of the City Code. So what's happened here is that this year, in April 19th of 2023, the city granted the applicant approvals for a tentative replat and a site plan for the development on about a 63,000 square foot hotel wing within the existing Hampton Inn Hotel. This development is situated on approximately 3.8 acres of land within Pod G of the Malibu Bay PUD master plan. The proposed replat has been reviewed for compliance with the city code, and like I said, in 2571, and so it's good. So, but let me explain that in a little bit more detail so we understand what's going on. As a development comes through the system, it typically has a site plan with it, and then paralleling it through the system is a plat. The platting process is largely ministerial because the site plan tells you where all the buildings are going to be and all the landscaping and all of the open space, and it really we try to make sure that the site plan conforms to the zoning code. The plat is basically just a survey of the land. It really shows you the boundaries of the land, the boundaries of the properties within that land, and maybe some roads and utilities and things like that. When an applicant submits there are multiple types of plats, and we'll get into that over the months as we go through this. But we've already approved the site plan. Paralleling the site plan is something called a tentative plat, right? And it goes through the system. It ultimately goes up to the county through approval because they're really in charge of the platting process. The site plan has been approved. These guys were essentially not building some townhomes that they wanted, that they had originally been approved to. They modified the site plan to build a hotel wing, and in the process needed to rearrange some internal property boundary lines and things like that. City of Homestead approved both of those things. The plat goes to the county. The county looks at the plat. It says, tentative plat's good, make it final. Now it's back here to become final. It's really a ministerial act, meaning you really can't deny it because it's when we recommend approval or denial, we're simply saying that the application conforms to the code. We're not making a value judgment on the application. Here, it conforms to our code and largely the county's code, and there's really nothing discretionary on there. That's why we recommend approval, and it'll go to Miami-Dade County to get finished off, and that's a quick platting lesson. We recommend approval.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments from council? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter? I'll open the public hearing. Anyone online? All right, so I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve or to grant final plat approval for this item. Moved by Councilman Roth, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth, Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila, Councilman Cannonball, Councilwoman Bailey, Vice Mayor Fletcher,
Yes.
Mayor Losner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
So moving on, Mayor, Council, we previously deferred tab 3 and tab 4 to the December 13th council meeting. So the next item for consideration is tab 5. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the rezoning as requested by Chrome Partners LLC of an approximately 0.31 acre parcel of land from R1 one family zoning district to professional business D1A zoning district for property generally located west of Chrome Avenue along the north side of Northwest 17th Street, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Cordino.
Thank you. Again, we're recommending approval of this. I put a rudimentary presentation up for this so that I could show some graphics and we could explain what's happening here. So we're recommending approval because the applicant is doing a rezoning, and they're going from R1, which is our lowest, one of our lowest residential categories, to B1A. So the city has two primary documents that we use in development services to measure applications against. The first one is the comprehensive plan. And in the comprehensive plan covers a host of what it calls elements, and one of those is a land use element. It talks about transportation, it talks about schools, it talks about infrastructure and those things, but important to development services is the future land use element. And what the future land use element does, it has a land use map, and what you see on the screen is the future land use map. paralleling the future land use map. What the future land use element does is it tells you in about a dozen different categories what the land use can be on a site. What that means is it lists the use, it's a broad use, and that broad use tells you whether it should be residential, industrial, mixed use, and it tells you what can go there and at what intensity. So it tells you, okay, you can have kind of industrial stuff on this land, and it can either be at a floor area ratio of this, which means kind of a building volume, or a density, it'll give you units per acre. It also lists, and I'll show you in a second, it lists a handful of zoning categories that implement it. The zoning categories and the comprehensive plan category have to match. We have a zoning map, that's what I'm showing you here. This is, so you see on the graphic, you see the top, that's our land use categories. We have quite a few of those and even more zoning categories. In this case, the property has got the star. We say the land use category has got to match the, and I think I have this here. Yeah, here we go. I'll show you that in a second. So in this case, the land use specified by the comprehensive plan and the zoning do not match one another. And so for the applicant to be able to develop on this site, they need to get the zoning to match what the comprehensive plan says it should be. And so what we see here is that the comprehensive plan is saying, the future land use, the future land use map of the comprehensive plan is saying this is a light commercial use. And if you can see on the zoning map, it is zoned as residential. So you inherently can't necessarily have zoning implement, a residential zoning on a commercial land use map. So what the comp plan says is, it's highlighted, it tells you what can happen on this light commercial use, and it says this land use is implemented by B1A, B1, R4, and B2. So the applicant then simply needs to change the zoning to one of those 4 categories. In this case, the applicant has chosen B1A. It's compatible with the comprehensive plan, and it's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. All things sync up, and that's how we get to the recommendation of approval. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Council, questions, comments? Okay. Is there anyone here on behalf of the applicant who would like to at least enter their appearance for the record? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience or online wishing to comment on this item? None online? I'll close the public hearing then and ask for a motion to approve on first reading. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey. Second by Vice Mayor Fletcher. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Cannabon? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Good, thank you. Next item, Mr. West.
Yes, the next item for consideration this evening is tab 6, car number 4093. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the rezoning as requested by Bonham Automotive, LLC, of an approximately 6.3 acre parcel of land from agricultural zoning district to retail commercial B2 zoning district for the property generally located east of Southeast 6th Avenue along the south side of Southwest 328th Street, Lucy Street, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict severability and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you.
Okay, this is very, very similar to the last one. We are recommending approval of the ordinance requesting the rezoning from agricultural to retail commercial, which is the B2 district. Again, they have a comprehensive, what the applicant is trying to do is extend a commercial, I guess, parking lot or storage lot for the automobiles that they're eventually going to sell. Right, the land that they're expanding onto is zoned agricultural. Right, and so the agricultural land that exists, and you looked at the zoning code, and I don't know if I have that in here. No, I don't. That you looked at the zoning code or the land use code for agricultural does not permit the parking lot. right? So to make those match, just like the last application, we have to change the zoning from agricultural. Now, Homestead's about over 100 years old, but almost all the land that we had was at one point in time zoned agricultural. And the agricultural uses, dude ranches, hydroponic farming, all these types of things don't permit that stuff. So we bring the land in, make the zoning code change. What we do here is look at the comp plan category. We notice that the comp plan category says if you change the zoning to B1A, B1, B2, or B3, then they are able to match up. So the applicant has chosen B2, they match up, and once we make that change, the applicant's then able to go follow the B2 zoning, put the parking lot there, and develop their application. And so that's our thought process in doing that, and that's why we're recommending approval, and I can answer questions if you have them.
Thank you, sir. Council, questions? All right, none appearing, then I'll open the public hearing. This is, anyone here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, council members. My name is Alessandra San Armand with law offices located at 701 Brickell Avenue. With me this evening is my colleague, Mr. Hugo Arza. I promise tonight has been a very long night, so I promise to be very brief. But we're here today on behalf of the applicant, Bomnin Automotive CC LLC. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property from agriculture, or AU, to retail, commercial, or B2. Based on the city staff report and Mr. Corradino's lovely presentation, we have received a recommendation of approval from staff, and of course we agree. So the property consists of approximately 6.56 acres located east of Southeast 6th Avenue and north of the Homestead extension of the Florida Turnpike, just along Southwest 328th Street. The property today is vacant, as seen by the images on the screen. The current land use is TMU, or Technology Mixed Use, and it is zoned AU Agriculture. And the purpose of this development, in 2016, the applicant actually successfully sought various approvals on the property located to the west of our application site. That today is developed with the Bomnin Chevrolet Homestead car dealership. Now the applicant intends to expand the car dealership, as you can imagine. The market has been calling for it. They've been wildly successful, and at this time, they're only requesting a surface parking lot used for vehicle storage spaces only on the southern portion of the property. In purchasing the entirety of the property, the applicant is also positioning itself to secure additional offerings for a dealership expansion perhaps in the future that will likely expand the brand and service offerings. As previously stated, we're seeking to rezone from AU to B2. Tonight is just the rezoning item. We will be back next month for second reading of the rezoning item as well as site plan approval. However, I did want to share with you the proposed plan. On the left is the existing Bomnin dealership, and on the right is the proposed application site. Here are the plans specifically for the property. You can see that the two sites will now be connected in the area shown by the arrow. And the property will also have lush landscaping and will be completely fenced with an aluminum picket fence to limit access to the site. That's for the southern portion, and the entire property itself will also be fenced. These are a few highlights of the justification for the rezoning. It's going to create much needed jobs, improve the aesthetic character of the surrounding neighborhood, continue to contribute to the city's economic prosperity and viability. It is consistent with the zoning designation, and most importantly, it's going to continue to create an opportunity to have a valuable community partner in the city. As shown on the screen, Bomnin partakes in a multitude of community events and has been an active Homestead community member for years. From support for children and low-income families to veterans and our military, Bomnin has been a pillar in the community and looks forward to continuing to support Homestead in any way it can. We have worked extensively with city staff on this application. Therefore, based on the foregoing, we urge you to approve our request per staff's recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you again for your time. I'd like to reserve any time for rebuttal.
Sure, thank you. Council members, any questions, comments? All right, so let me go to public comment. Is there anyone online? No. Anyone in the audience? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing, and if there's nothing further from council, I'll ask for a motion to approve on first reading. Moved by Councilman Roth, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Roth? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Cannonball? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Have a good
We'll see you
night.
next month. All right, tab 7.
All right, that completes your quasi-judicial items this evening. Moving on to legislative items. The first item for consideration this evening is tab 7, car number 3932. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the City of Homestead Comprehensive Plan as requested by D.R. Horton, Inc., by amending the text of the Technology Mixed Use TMU Future Land Use category contained in Objective 2, Policy 2.1, to include residential uses in permit density up to 15 dwelling units per net acre, providing for transmittal to the Florida Department of Commerce, Division of Community Planning, Development and Services, providing for conflict, severability, providing for inclusion in the city's comprehensive plan, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Hey, Mr. Cordino.
Okay, thank you, sir. On this one, we're doing something a little bit different. On this one, we're recommending consideration. This is a change to a comprehensive plan category. And so when we recommend, like I had mentioned previously, when we recommend approval or recommend denial on things out of the zoning code, again, we're not making value judgments on those developments. We're simply saying that the development does or does not fit the parameters of the code, meaning it's within the right height, it's got the right setbacks, it's got the right pervious space, those types of things. This, an applicant has come in and has wanted to modify kind of a chapter or paragraph in the technology mixed use text. That's really purely a policy decision. We would look at it and say, well, does it fit the character of the neighborhood? Obviously, if it was a low density a category and somebody wanted to do high density development in it, we would bring that to your attention. But effectively, it's purely a policy decision, which is up to you. So we've provided the text. I'm sure that you've reviewed it already, but I've simply highlighted the addition to the text that the applicant wants to make. Again, it's a paragraph worth of language, and the applicant is simply adding and mixed-use development within the technology mixed-use zoning districts will permit a maximum residential density of 15 dwelling units an acre, notwithstanding the foregoing mixed-use development within the technology mixed-use zoning district abutting low-density resolution shall be permitted at a maximum residential density of 12 units an acre. So we feel this is compatible with the neighborhood. We feel that neighborhoods that the technology mixed use is in, because it is a category that can be just about anywhere in the city. For reference, I mean, 15 units in it, I think our maximum density is close to 30 units an acre. This is half of that. The applicant will be coming back with a amended zoning code, because we currently, right now, do not have a zoning code for technology mixed use. They're going to create one, and you'll be reviewing that next month, and then I believe site plan for development. So this is yours to consider. We don't think it violates any of the policies of your comprehensive plan. So have at it, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, and I know the applicant is well represented, so I'll open the podium for
Good evening, Melissa Tapinas with law offices at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Miami. Congratulations to the new council members, to the mayor, the vice mayor. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. We do have a presentation. We can keep it short, or you've seen a portion of this presentation a couple months ago at the will of the council. I'm prepared to make this presentation or not. The will of the council, we do? Perfect. So as I mentioned, I represent D.R. Horton. We are bringing forth this application as we look at the city of Homestead and specifically the 97 acres of land that are designated as technology mixed use. We note that there is no zoning district, and this property has several zoning districts, including townhouse, residential, and general use. On the screen, you'll see the 4 areas within the city of Homestead that have this technology mixed use land use designation. As you can see, some are more urban, some are closer to low density residential. And when we looked at this category, we noted that the city of Homestead does not have a mixed use designation that allows for vertical and horizontal mixed use. So what we've endeavored to do is create that new zoning district, which, as Mr. Corradino mentioned, would be before you next month for consideration. Because there is no implementing TMU zoning district, we endeavored to look at this designation not just for the 97 acres of land under contract by D.R. Horton, but the other properties as well. So the goal here is to move forward with the TMU text amendment to the comprehensive plan to make it clear that the PUD zoning district is not the only zoning district that would allow for this mixed-use development, and we provided for the maximum density of 15 units per acre, 12 units for areas closer to low-density residential, such as the portion, the designated area that is in the west of the city, and as was mentioned, we'll be back before you with those land development regulations. This is all the legislation process. We will be moving forward with a specific application on these 97 acres of land, but that's not before you. And as we discussed at the council workshop, we'll have 2 community workshops to discuss that application in detail before bringing it before this council, we hope, next year. So specifically, this is the language in policy 2.1. It says that there will be a future TMU zoning district category. It's been about 15 years, none has been created, and we wanted to move forward with that. That's the language that Mr. Corradino read out, the process moving forward as we've discussed, and again, our anticipated dates moving forward with the actual project. So we're available for any questions. Respectfully request time for rebuttal if necessary, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll open it up to council. Councilman Roth.
Thank you. So I did meet earlier with staff and just run through the process of the entitlements that are on the property now, best case scenario for the density, and worst case scenario for the density. Because what I'm trying to establish is the TMU plan that they're bringing forward, the best case scenario for the city based on other factors that affect our area. Live Local Act is one of those. So as far as the number of units that could potentially be put on this property, is this best case scenario or worst case scenario for our property?
Oh, there's a lot in that. So let me try to break it down. So right now, as you heard and saw, the existing future land use category is technology mixed use. The only category, so in technology mixed use, it identifies there are a number of zoning districts which implement TMU, right? The only zoning category that has a residential component that one could seek a rezoning for, consistent with that TMU future land use category, is a PUD. PUD zoning requires there to be a master plan. There are numerous requirements in the zoning district which mandate mixed use, gives minimum unit sizes, open space criteria, calculations, all those sorts of things, right? So that's the only aspect or zoning category as it stands now that would allow for residential. There are commercial zoning districts which an applicant could seek to rezone consistent with the future land use application. And if they were wanting to develop a traditional development, there would be no mixed-use residential component unless they chose to or wanted to avail themselves of SB 102, which allows for a mixed-use residential affordable component. But having said that, you would need to satisfy the criteria that's in the statute, as well as whatever zoning regulations that we put into play. And if you recall, a few months back, in anticipation of the Live Local Act becoming effective, prior to that, we as a city looked at, examined, and adopted regulations for our commercial and industrial zoning categories because A, they never contemplated or had any residential aspect of it, and you all wanted to have some certainty or know what the rules were with respect to if someone were to come in and to avail themselves and develop, they would have to comply with certain regulations. And so you all adopted those regulations, and those are currently in play for your commercial and industrial zoning categories. We've not done that for this technology mixed-use zoning category. So, yes, this is in line with the density for a PUD, because with a PUD, you have to look at the underlying zoning category. Could be, low-density residential, medium-density residential, so it's not apples to apples, but under that, the maximum that you're looking at is 15 to 20. So this is in line with that and comparable. Even with this zoning, right, if we establish the zoning district regulations, which are coming before you next month, but in preliminary draft form you've all looked at, we've discussed, it's proposed that if you were to avail yourself of or request a technology mixed-use zoning district, the requirement is that you have to do that with a master plan that sets out all the various land development regulations, controls that would govern that development. So could someone come in and rezone and seek to do it SB 102? Yes, but they would still have to come in, rezone subject to a master plan approval before you all would approve the rezoning, which would technically give you some parameters with respect to what that SB 102 project would look like. Short of that, they could come in and rezone to a B1 or B2 and not have any master plan, and if they wanted to subsequently come in and develop subject to SB 102, you have parameters and regulations in place that they would have to comply with. Depending on the
A PUD is up to 20 units per
I get it, I
acre.
get
We're
it, I
doing
get
less
it.
than 15.
No, I get it.
And the property already has multifamily residential townhome zoning on it today.
Right, that's what I'm trying to just, I mean, all of us
Mayor?
on this side came off of a campaign that said, hey, we're not gonna do any more
Councilman?
building, we're not gonna do all this, we're not gonna do
Mayor?
all that. So,
Yes.
With the light flicker, the recording of the meeting stopped. We're rebooting it
So
right
we need
now.
to
If you
stop?
guys can give us a few minutes just to
Okay.
reset. I think we're okay with
Nominate myself to
James.
say it.
I think we're okay with James. It's after that.
All right.
If the applicant was not proposing development criteria,
Getting nerdy, James. You're getting nerdy, James.
Not recording.
No one's listening. I can say it when I'm on tape. Thank you.
go ahead, James.
All I was going to say is that to follow up on a conversation that you and I had earlier today, is that whether or not this gets approved, it's already set up for the applicant has the ability to apply for a PUD, go through the PUD rezoning process, I mean, whether you all approve that or not, but that's something that's already available. That's
Right, so
in
that-
place.
So that's kind of what this questioning was about, was if we approve this, are we really taking away the worst case scenario where we talk about the Live Local Act and the density would be much greater than what is allowed now, and they would have to go through hoops and things to make all that work because of the affordable housing thing and all that. I just wanted to, in my mind, know that if we, approve this, then we're actually doing the city a favor by doing it and not allowing for somebody the opportunity to come in here and do something that's going to be more intense on that property. Is that correct?
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, there's no guarantees, but generally speaking, that the worst case scenario would be an SB 102, which would allow for much greater density than
Right, and
is
then
being requested or what's currently.
and potentially a lot less amenities too. I mean, we wouldn't have some of the commercial development, we wouldn't have some of the attractions there as well because there's just not that much space on that property for potentially 3,000 units versus what could be planned here in the future. So that was my biggest concern and question about that for now. So thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just jump in here, and, shortly after we saw the first glimpse of this several months ago, I did some correspondence back with Mr. Cordino, and as I recall, he agreed with my math that without doing anything, or without this property is situated to have as many as 3,100 live local units, maybe not even limited to the 40% affordable, perhaps 100% tax exempt. And Mr. Cordino, confirmed or, validated my math. So yeah, I think to your point, the current worst case scenario is far more dense and intense without ad valorem, without the amenities, without nearly as much as diversity in mixed use than what is proposed in the next couple of meetings and to be shopped around at the workshop under the passage of this provision. It's still 1,100 units, but it's not 3,100 units. And again,
It's not a PUD, right? The PUD is the status quo where you get the out parcels, some townhouses, and what we're trying to do is different, and that's why we're going through this legislative exercise.
what else? All right, so let's open the floor to the public. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? And again, this action is limited to a text amendment to the comp plan, correct? amending the definition of what is permitted under a TMU, technology mixed use overlay. Mr. and Mrs. Homestead, no units are being approved. Let's be really clear on that. So there's no public comment. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve this item on first reading. Okay. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilwoman Cannonball. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Cannonball?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before we continue to the next item, if we can make a motion to extend the meeting, I think we've run past 8:30.
So, moved by the Vice Mayor to extend to 9:30?
Yes.
Motion to extend the meeting to 9:30. Second by Councilman Roth. All in favor? All right. All right, so that takes us to tab 8. Is that correct?
Yes, moving on to tab 8. Tab 8 is a second reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map designation as requested by Chrome 2020 LLC for Lot 14 and Lot 15 within an approximately 0.75 acre parcel of land from low residential use LRU to light commercial use LCU for property located at 1701 North Chrome Avenue as identified by Miami-Dade County Folio Number 10-7907-021-0340 and legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Council? Questions, comments on second reading? Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak? Good evening, Mr. Proctor. The only consolation is it's not nearly as late as it seems.
Okay. It's been quite an afternoon. I hope, is it still raining? That's Jerry Proctor, attorney, 7600 Southwest 57 Avenue, joined by Olga Garcia, who is our consultant on this matter. Congratulations to the returning and new council members, and best of luck. We are here on second reading on a matter that's an amendment to the land use plan for about 3/10 of an acre. This is kind of the reverse of a couple of matters that you had earlier, which rezoned to make consistent with the land use plan. This is a change to the land use plan to make consistent with the zoning. The property's on 17th Street. It's been used and zoned commercially for many years. It had a commercial building on it until 1993. That building was demolished at that time, but it's been zoned commercially since the mid-1970s. And this action, hopeful action by the council on second reading, would make the land use map consistent. We support staff's recommendation and ask for your support. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Council, any questions or comments? None appearing. Is there anyone online or in the audience wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion for approval on second reading of this item. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Cannonball? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carried.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Proctor. Good evening. All right. So that takes us to tab 9, Mr. Burrow.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 9 is the second reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending sections 22.5-146, Administrative Committee to correct a Scrivener's error, section 22.5-147, term of office, resignation, removal of committee members to provide that terms of office for certain administrative committee members will be 4 years, and section 22.5-172, deferred retirement option plan to amend the rules concerning drop distributions, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. This is second reading. Is there any objection to waiving the reading of the staff report? I didn't think so. Do we have a motion? We move for approval by Councilman Roth, seconded by Vice Mayor Fletcher. Is there any public comment? We'll close the public hearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Councilman Conball? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Tab 10, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 10 is also the second reading of an ordinance amending the city code of the City of Homestead, amending section 22.5-46 of the police officer's retirement plan to provide for 4-year terms of office for pension trustees and permitting drop participants to be elected to the Board of Trustees, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, well, also, any objection to waiving the staff report? Didn't think so. Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Any public comment? Close the public hearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Conball? Councilman Roth? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 11.
Mr. Mayor, tab reading is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budgets for each of the several funds and departments of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, by increasing the total budgeted revenues and expenditures by $278,309, providing for repealer, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Let me paraphrase the staff report. This is a truing up of the actual expenditures and expenses that actually occurred on September 30th. We're not finding new money, we're not spending new money, correct?
You're correct, Mayor.
All right. We have a motion to approve tab 11. Moved by Bailey, seconded by Roth. Any public comment? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Conball? Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 12.
Tab 12 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budgets for each of the several funds and departments of the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, by increasing the total budgeted revenues and expenditures by $10,781,880, providing for repealer, severability, and an effective date.
We waive the staff report. Any objections? We have a motion to approve tab 12. No, this was 12 or 13? 12. All right, moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Any public comment? We'll close the public hearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Roth? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Conball? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carried.
And I guess we have to slow down on tab 13. Mr. Manager, is this yours?
Yes, it is, Mayor. Thank you. As a recipient of the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Funds from HUD, the city is required to submit consolidated annual performance evaluation report, called the CAPER, to HUD within 90 days after the end of the fiscal year. The CAPER describes the activities undertaken during the year beginning October 1st, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2023. This includes information on the city's CDBG program and the resources made available to administer the program and where and how these resources are invested. In accordance with the city's approved citizen participation plan, the CAPER was advertised for a 15-day public comment period commencing October 27th, 2023, and ending prior to November 15th, 2023. The deadline to submit to HUD is December 31st, 2023. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report and authorize staff to transmit the report to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Miami Field Office.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions or comments from council? Any public comment? Motion to approve tab 13, car number 4063. Moved by the Vice Mayor. And second by Councilman Rowe. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. It's her turn. All right, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Roth? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Cannavale? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 14, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Homestead is responsible for the maintenance of the following three bridges within the city limits: Campbell Drive and Southwest 162 Avenue, Campbell Drive Southwest 152 Avenue, and Campbell Drive between Malibu Way and Southwest 137th Avenue. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to award ITV 2023-36 to Titan Construction Management LLC for the repairs of the bridges 874353, 876010, 874311 for a total of $243,000. This authorization will also allow the city manager to accept a price increase of up to 10% if needed. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 2476.
All right, council, any questions, comments? Yes, Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. The package contains a quote for over $600,000 to do these repairs. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
There were multiple bids submitted, let me see, and the lowest was the Titan Construction, or for the $243,000, right? But yes, two vendors, Southern Road and Razorback, both quoted well over $600,000 for these repairs.
That's incredible, and it just took me aback, and I wanted to highlight that we're getting it at the price that we're getting it. And then these bridge repairs, how do we as a city identify these concern areas, and were these reported by residents?
No, FDOT comes and looks at our bridges periodically, and they identified two that needed repairs and they were requesting. We identified a third one ourselves, and we said, you know what, since we're bringing out a contractor to do the repairs, let's just repair this third bridge as well.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'll rest.
Yes, Councilman Roth?
Just one question. I thought that 162 Avenue was slated to be expanded and widened. Is that still the plan?
Yes, we're working on that, but we have to do the repairs that FDOT is requiring us to do, just for the safety of the motorists that are going over the bridge constantly, yes.
That's all, thank you.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was my question. It can't be delayed and incorporated into that project if we have a definite time frame?
I mean, we could definitely inquire, but usually with FDOT notified, well, here comes Julio. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Brea.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, the improvements that we're doing to these bridges will not impede any future expansion to it. So in other words, the expansion that we're going to do to the existing bridge will remain there. It won't have to be redone once we go and widen the road. In other words, they'll just widen the bridge structure on both sides to, include the extra lanes that we're getting on there. But the work that we're doing now will not, in other words, we're not going to have to redo any of the work. It's going to remain there steady, so.
We're not doubling the work.
No, okay, so so it's clear, the work that we're doing on it today will stay there in the future, and then the bridge will be expanded with what we're making the repairs of today. So in other words, they're not going to take that bridge out after we repair it and put a new bridge.
No, that is correct.
They're just going to expand that bridge. So then that makes sense to do that.
Yeah, and none of the repairs that we're doing now are structurally related. They're mostly just maintenance issues that they want us to take care of.
Underpinning. Okay. All right, yes, Councilwoman.
I had one question regarding the bids. So we have one local vendor that was about 50,000 more than the lowest bid. Have we ever done an analysis of what that 50,000 means versus $290,000 keeping it within the city? I think that would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yes, we do remember, we have the local vendor preference. If they're within 15% of the bid, we offer them the opportunity to match the lowest bid.
Okay, that was going to be my second question.
Yes.
So they were offered that.
She says they were not within the 15%, so the offer was not made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve? Moved by the Vice Mayor. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Was there any public comment? None appearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Carnival? Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
real
sure.
quick?
Go ahead, Councilman Roth.
Just a question, Jerry and staff. The local vendor preference in that case, because they weren't within 15% of the bid, are we technically not allowed to let them know what the bid was, and if can they match it or come in lower? Because, I mean, I'd still like to give the local vendor a preference if we can. So I guess my question is, because of the 15% threshold they didn't make, we didn't give them an opportunity to rebid. Is that right?
Correct. Once you open up the sealed bids, they're set, and like you said, Councilman, if they're within that 15%, then that's when the offer is given to them to go ahead and match that lowest bid. So no, we can't just go to the local vendor, hey, if you lower it, we'll award it to you.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, sir.
Because if they're within that 15, so what gives us the ability to do that within the 15%?
That was put into code, I want to say, well over a decade ago. So in terms of the procurement manual, and it was actually put into the code, that was put in place to go ahead and give the local vendors an opportunity to match the price and get city business.
Well, if I could, let me ask the attorneys this. Is that 15% based upon any statutory limitation, or was that something we built in here in the city?
I want to say that's
an arbitrary number.
I'm sorry, not an arbitrary, I mean, talking to council, that's the number we came up with. Okay?
I guess the underlying question is, we could amend that to take it to 17.5% or 20%.
That's a possibility. If that's something council wants us to bring back at a later date, that's definitely
Maybe something we need to
we can
look
have the
at
discussion.
as these road projects are going to begin to come together, that we're going to be funding potentially or managing as well as other projects. That's a great way to kickstart the local economy and promote local business. Finished? Vice Mayor.
Yeah, could we ask the attorneys to look at what other cities might have in their code to ensure we're all looking the same? We don't want to be a huge outlier. Yes, we want to make the effort to get the local vendors there, but we don't want to be crazy out of line where there's potential legal issues is all. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we already voted on that motion, so we're on to tab 15. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 15 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing the city manager to accept a grant award from the State of Florida Division of Historical Resources for the funding of the Homestead History Digitization Phase 2 project, approving the grant agreement, authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the grant agreement, establishing a budget in the amount of $50,000 for the expenditure of grant funds, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the City of Homestead has been awarded a grant for an amount of $50,000 from the State of Florida Division of Historical Resources, the Homestead, for the Homestead Historical Digitization Phase 2 project. Phase 1 was basically laserfish, any film reels or anything of that nature. This award is actually for hard copies. Actually, we have the archives from the news leader upstairs in the manager's office. So staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the grant of $50,000 from the State of Florida Division of Historical Resources to execute the agreement and establish a budget.
Very good. Thank you, Council. Yes, moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Is there any public comment? None appearing. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Carnival? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 16, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, tab 16 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, urging the Florida Legislature to provide increased funding and a dedicated funding source for the Biscayne Bay Water Quality Improvement Grant Program, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The Miami-Dade Chief Bay Officer Irela Bagay is asking each municipality to endorse the county's recently adopted resolution urging the Florida Legislature to provide increased funding and a dedicated funding source for the Biscayne Bay Water Quality Improvement Grant Program. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council consider the attached resolution urging the Florida Legislature to provide increased funding and a dedicated funding source for the Biscayne Bay Quality Improvement Grant Program.
Thank you. Council, any questions, comments? All right, moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Cannavale. For any public comment? Close the public hearing and ask for a roll call vote on tab 19, I think. Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Cannavale? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Good, thank you. Does that take us to tab
17?
17? Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 17 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing the financing of 2 roll-off trucks in an amount not to exceed $581,000 pursuant to the master lease with Truist Equipment Finance Corp. and/or its affiliates or assigns, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is for the financing of the 2 solid waste roll-off trucks approved for purchase by council on September 20th, 2023 via Resolution R 2023-09129. Total approximate cost for both trucks to be financed is $581,000. Interest rate on an 8-year term is 5.79%. Quarterly lease payments are $22,814. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to finance the purchase of the 2 roll-off trucks for the Solid Waste Department through the Truist Equipment Finance Corp. and/or its affiliates or assigns Truist master lease.
Thank you. And to clarify for our new members and the public, this is to fund the acquisition of the 2 trucks that fell into our lap fortuitously a month or 2 ago. If we approve the purchase, this is the approval of the funding of that purchase. Any public comment? None appearing. Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Councilman Roth. Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Cannavale? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 19. 18. So I get for turning ahead to see how much further we have to go. Tab 18.
Tab 18 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award from the United States Department of Justice for law enforcement crime reduction initiatives, approving the grant agreement, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement, establishing a budget in the amount of $299,999 for the expenditure of grant funds, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The Homestead Police Department applied for and received the $299,999 grant from the Department of Justice Rural and Small Department Violence Crime Reduction Program. The grant award funds crime reduction initiatives which are determined through enhanced crime analysis to identify the area within the city in which the most crime is occurring. The grant award funds a crime analyst and a law enforcement overtime, evidence-based law enforcement training and supplies. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $299,999 from the Department of Justice for law enforcement crime reduction initiatives. This grant requires no matching funds.
Even better. Hey, Councilman Fletcher and I will each kick in 50 cents and make it an even 300. Where do we come up with the $299,999? Questions from council, comments? We have a motion. Moved
I'll make the motion. Thank
by
you, Sandy.
Councilwoman Avila. We have a second. Second by Councilman Fletcher. Is there any public comment? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Carnaval? Yes. Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 19, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 19 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a grant award from the United States Department of Justice Law Enforcement Crime Reduction Initiatives, approving the grant agreement, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement, establishing a budget in the amount of $61,794 for the expenditure of grant funds, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The Homestead Police Department applied for and received a grant from the Department of Justice in the amount of $61,794. The objectives of the grant are to reduce crime within the city of Homestead. The grant will fund law enforcement overtime for investigative purposes and the purchasing of software to identify and locate stolen property. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award of $61,794 from the Department of Justice for law enforcement crime reduction initiatives. This grant also does not require any matching funds.
Very good. Thank you. Council, questions, comments? We have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Is there any public comment? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Carnaval? Councilwoman Bailey? Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Tab 20, something to get excited about. Mr. Pearl.
Tab 20 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, accepting a proposal and approving work authorization for engineering services required for the city for traffic signal construction plans between the city and Kimley Horton Associates, Inc., pursuant to continuing contract awarded under RFQ 2013-07, establishing a budget, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. In 2019, the City Council adopted Resolution R 2019-0444, granting a site plan approval for a residential development abutting Southwest 152nd Avenue. As a condition of the site plan approval, the applicant submitted a $500,000 payment for traffic mitigation purposes. The Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works Traffic Engineering Department performed a signal warranty analysis and has determined that the traffic signal is warranted for the intersection of Southwest 152 Avenue and Alex Muxo Boulevard. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Kimberly Horn for professional engineering services pursuant to RFQ 2013-07, professional architectural and engineering services for a lump sum not to exceed $96,088.21 for engineering consulting services for the traffic signalization construction plans for the intersection of Southwest 152 Ave and Alex Muxo Jr. Boulevard. This resolution will also allow the city manager to provide a price adjustment increase of up to 10% if necessary. The resolution will also establish a budget for the $500,000 contribution and shall appropriate the funding for the above scope of work. And like you said, Mayor, this one's been long in coming here.
Make a lot of folks happy.
Yes.
A lot of.
Especially Councilman Roth.
Yeah.
I got another one for you now.
We got lots of them. Okay. Did I hear a motion by Councilwoman Bailey? Okay. Moved by Bailey, seconded by Roth. Any public comment? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Yes. Councilman Carnaval? Yes. Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fletcher?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carried.
Sure, Councilman Roth.
I want to ask a question to staff, and maybe Julio can answer this too. Well, how do we start the process to petition the county to put lights in areas that we feel we need lights? There's one specifically, there's maybe two specifically along the same road that need to be addressed, and the one is East Mowry and 152, coming out of that new area where the school is. They built Porta Vida, I think it's called, and people making that, trying to go east to go north is becoming a bigger problem. And then also the one that's just south of Canal, coming out of the area of South Canal.
Four-way stop.
There's no four-way stop there. There's just coming out of South Canal. The four-way stop is by the school. That one, yeah, eventually, but that one, everybody's leaving in the morning from work from those two new communities there, heading east to go north, and they have to fight traffic coming from the south and the north each way. So what the process would be to start to evaluate those two intersections, because I don't know, I haven't asked the police department yet what the 17 numbers are there yet, but it was brought up a few times as we were out there knocking on doors that intersection, those two intersections are extremely dangerous for people trying to leave in the morning.
Yes, so we would reach out to Miami-Dade County for them to perform the signal warrant study at those intersections. As part of that, we can also provide the police data for those intersections as support in their methodology, and we'll get that started right away.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all. Okay. Now for the hard stuff at 9:12 in the evening. Tab 22, Mr. Pearl.
21.
21, okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
21.
Okay. Tab 21 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the settlements of all claims made by George Cazares, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Yeah, we'll waive. We were there. We'll waive the report.
I'm fine with that,
Yeah.
Mayor, I'm fine with
Moved
that.
by Councilman Roth. Second by Councilwoman Avila. Is there any public comment? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Conaball? Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And on to tab 22, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 22 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the City of Homestead Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 28 Utilities, Article 8 Electricity, Division 2 Deposits, Rates, and Charges, Section 28-251 Schedule of Electric Rates, by establishing revised base rate charges for electric bills, providing for severability, providing for implementation, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Homestead currently sorry, it's really loud. Homestead currently has the fourth lowest base rate for electricity in the state of Florida. The base rates for HBS electricity utility bills have not changed materially since February of 1988, and the CPI has increased 157% in the same time frame. The base rate is used to spread the cost of maintaining the electrical system across all customers who depend on the grid, meaning all the equipment and manpower that is necessary to move the electricity to and from homes and businesses. In order to appropriately cover these current costs, it is necessary to increase the base charge. The base rate increase will be implemented in conjunction with a decrease to the current power cost adjustment. This, combined with the October 1st, 2023 power cost adjustment reduction, will result in a savings to our resident customers of approximately $12.80 a month. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council approve the attached ordinance revising the base rates for electric charges. The changes needed to keep up with the current cost of maintaining the necessary equipment and manpower to provide energy to our customers. Now, Mayor and Council, this is the first reading on this item, so it has to come back in December. So we're going to do an information campaign to our residents, letting them know about the base rate going up, but as well that we're lowering the power cost adjustment, so they will be seeing a savings on their bills moving forward.
Very good, thank you. And a question I would have, and I get that we, by virtue of the failure to increase it since 1988?
I think in 2000, they may have raised it 10 cents.
Okay. I guess I'm curious, because we have started to build in annual increases and other issues just to keep up, where we have found that other services have just been let lay. And I'd be curious to know through the FMEA, FMPA, whichever it is now, to know what other municipal utilities are doing. Is that something that is a natural increase every year, or do others do as we have done, but not as less frequently as we do.
Mayor, I love it. You're preaching to the choir, just like we've done for the water and sewer and solid waste. We want to do a CPI, bring that amendment to you all. That way, it's automatic every year, but in other words, we would bring it to you. It has to be an ordinance change in the
Right,
end,
no, I
but
get
if you
that.
guys direct us every year, the consumer price index, then we have the justification to bring
Yeah,
that
I
item
guess,
to
is
you.
that the logical next step? I mean, certainly we've got to catch up here,
Correct.
but is building that in. So, Mr. Good, did you get any information on my question?
Yes, I was just confirming that we cannot do it on an automatic basis. It would have to be the ordinance, as Mr. Strong
But once
just said.
again, like the water, I think the water, even though we bring it, even though they put the CPI in? I'm trying
Yes,
to-
that's correct. The water rate each year, you all have to approve it at a public hearing, even though it's kind of built in the CPI increase into the ordinance. We would have to do it in a
We're not
similar
permitted
fashion.
to do it with an electric utility.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Definitely, absolutely.
So
We'll
just have
definitely
to
bring that to you all.
Be more diligent on doing an annual analysis.
Not to belabor the meeting tonight, maybe it's just some information, if you could pull it for us. Recently, Tampa Electric Company announced they're lowering their rates due to the natural gas prices. If you can get us an overall look at where we could possibly look at lowering our use charge.
Like you said, the fuel charges, that's the power cost adjustment. We're required by law, that's a direct pass-through. If we paid $1 for the fuel to generate the electricity, we could pass $1. We can't pass more than $1. It has to be that. But yes, we'll look and see what they're doing and definitely bring that back to council.
Thank you. And again, as you said, this is first reading. We can provide the information and get more information to
Yes, sir.
help educate the public, which is
Yes, sir.
so important. All right, is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve on first reading. Moved by Vice Mayor Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Cannonball. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Cannonball? Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey? Vice Mayor Fletcher? Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, I believe that takes us, Mr. Manager, is there any other business from your office tonight?
No, Mayor, not
Right
for
here.
tonight.
Mr. Attorney?
Nothing
Exec
from-
sessions? Okay.
Nothing for me this evening.
All right, we'll, pending your compilation of information, we'll schedule the workshop
Yes.
on the potential high-density residential temporary moratorium. All right, Councilman Roth, you're first.
Just two minor things. Just an update on is the FDOT thing tomorrow, the meeting?
Correct.
Tomorrow, okay. I won't be present at that, so if somebody would.
We're going to have someone there.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to be out of town. And I want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving next week. Enjoy your families, your friends, and just stay blessed and be blessed for all the things that we're all blessed with. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo my colleagues' wishes for a very happy Thanksgiving. I'm very thankful for staff, for everything that you all did, especially with the event that happened this past weekend. All of the collaboration with the nonprofit organizations really pulled off a wonderful symphony in the park. And I would not have been able to do that without staff's direct involvement and your dedication to making sure that it came out stellar. So thank you very much for that. And I also want to thank Development Services for helping with the tree lighting ceremony permitting process and with the city sponsoring some of those items there. So that's with the Waterstone community. So wishing you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, speaking of Thanksgiving, I think you have all helped me at some point with decorating and serving the Southwest community. This year, we were approached by the Schultz Foundation. It is their 17th annual Thanksgiving brunch. and they picked different areas in Florida to host this, and they chose Homestead this year. So we have a beautiful brunch prepared. It'll be at Fico Williams, and it is on Thanksgiving Day, which I know is a huge ask, but it promises to have everybody out no later than 2 o'clock. And I would absolutely love if any of my colleagues will help me serve the community. You can choose breakfast or an early lunchtime. So I'll be circulating that email with you tomorrow, hopefully, so that you have the details. And if you are available to come for just a little while, how special would it be that we can do it on Thanksgiving Day?
It's a big deal.
Yes. And then second, just real quick, an update on CRB. We are getting incredibly close. I think we're only missing 2 resumes. So for December's meeting, you will have that all available for your consideration.
Good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Cannonball, anything?
Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family and your friends, okay? Thank you.
Councilman Davis.
I would like to thank the council, mayor, vice mayor, and our staff for a wonderful onboarding. This has been very smooth, been very effective, and everyone has been so kind in this whole process. It's been a bit overwhelming, as we all know, but thank you very much for what you've done. And happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Just a quick question. I'd met earlier with the chief in regards, and I'd given him some information I was requesting on ShotSpotter. You don't have to tell me about it tonight, but if you could forward us the data that's happening. And I know we only funded that for a period of time. When does that renewal come up, and do we have to get some money for that? Okay, thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Very good. Well, thank you, and I'll add my wishes for a happy Thanksgiving to all. I want to congratulate again and thank all of my colleagues, returning and new. Been quite a trial by fire tonight. I know it's been a whirlwind week. The orientation here can make your head spin. And Councilman Fletcher and I were talking about, thinking about what, you think you're ready. But when you sit down under the glare of the lights and the camera, you kind of think, what am I doing here? And I understand that, but before you know it, it'll be just as easy as tying your shoes. I want to compliment the whole Veterans Day event. I had my concerns and my doubt as to, potential attendance and the quality of the performance, and it was outstanding. And I hope that our Christmas performers, whatever's been lined up, and we'll talk about that in some one-on-ones. Again, as my saying, we take things up a notch. We really did. The parade was well attended for a first-time event. The Veterans Day concert was well attended, and with the upcoming addition of the ice skating rink and the enhanced Christmas decorations throughout the city, we're taking our place among the big cities with the small town feel. And I just want to thank staff and everyone.
And Mayor, if I could say, I want to give the credit to Camila and Zach. They spearheaded the event, and we're very happy.
And I think the community, everybody who was there was happy. The fireworks always add a nice touch, and it just shows that, we can put our heads together and make great things happen. So with that, again, thank you all. It's been a pleasure. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.